Good evening. I'm Alice Bloom, and I'll be your host tonight for LMC-TV's live election night coverage, mostly in the village and town of Mamaroneck. I think we're all happy to see this election season close, but no one expected it to go out with the punch that Hurricane Sandy brought. Countywide, over 200,000 Con Ed customers lost power, and restoration efforts seem pretty slow, especially if you're still without power. Locally, it's estimated that between 200 and 300 trees and major tree branches have fallen and taken down power lines. Con Ed notes that there were approximately 5,600 damaged locations around Westchester, and they brought in nearly 1,500 crew persons from across the U.S. to help with the restoration. We're told that for comparison purposes and perspective on the breadth of this storm, in Con Edison's regional territory for Hurricane Irene, there were slightly over 200,000 homes and businesses without power. In this storm, there are slightly more than 800,000 customers in the same territory without power. Estimates are that Hurricane Sandy is between 15 to 30 times as severe as Hurricane Irene was. It's no small feat that we're able to broadcast to you tonight, and we sincerely hope that your power has been restored and that your lives are on the way back to normalcy. Let's talk about the election. Miraculously, all polling places in the village and town of Mamaroneck have been open today. We know you have your eye on the presidential race and that you'll be seeking national news coverage. Here, we're watching some very interesting local races, especially in the village and town of Mamaroneck. And while we await the results, we'll bring you interviews with local Latino voters, conversations with Steve Josephson and Chris Cassese of the Mamaroneck and Larchmont Chambers of Commerce, and conversations with former Journal News editor Milt Hoffman and Susan Schwartz, chair of Westchester County's Fair Campaign Practices Committee. And we expect Town Supervisor Nancy Seligson and Mamaroneck Mayor Norm Rosenblum to stop by. As always, we eagerly welcome local candidates who'll join us when the counting is done and the victors are declared. Let me tell you about the races that we're watching. Naturally, we're all waiting for results in the presidential race, and we'll be bringing you that information if we know it, but you may know that before we do. In Congress, we're looking at the race for District 16, Elliot Engel against Joseph McLaughlin of the Republican Party and Joe DiFieri of the Green Party. On the state level, there are some very exciting races. Bob Cohen is running against George Latimer in the New York Senate District for the 37th District. Now, George Latimer, as we all know, is our former state assemblyman for the 91st District. George had to vacate his spot as New York State Assemblyman in order to run, and you'll remember that the Senate District 37 was Susie Oppenheimer's district, and she stepped down this year. George gives up his seat, and Steve Otis of Rye on the Democratic Party is running against William Villanova. That's the New York Assembly District 91, and we'll be watching for results in that race. In the town of Mamaroneck, there's a race for a one-year unexpired term. Jane Elkind-Eny is running. She's the incumbent, and she's being challenged by Jay Rubin. They're both lawyers, and coincidentally, they both went to Fordham Law. A little bit of trivia for you. There's also a race for town justice. Ronald Meister, the incumbent, is being challenged by Robert Sternbach. In the village of Mamaroneck, there are 3 trustee seats open. The 3 Democratic trustees, Tony Ryan, John Hofstadter, and Sid Alpert, chose not to run for re-election this year, so 3 seats are up. Those running are George Belsito, Republican and Conservative, Dennis Cuccinella, also Republican Conservative, Mike Sudano, Republican Conservative. Mike served 1 term on the board in the 90s. On the Democratic Party, Andre Bermudez Hallstrom, Elissa Miller, and Leon Potok are running. So that race is going to be very exciting, and we'll be able to bring you results of that as soon as they are available. There's also a race for village justice in the village of Mamaroneck. Dan Gallagher is the incumbent, and he's being challenged by Jennifer Beanstalk Cohen. We have reporters at Republican and Democratic headquarters in the village of Mamaroneck who'll be bringing us news of the races in the village and in the town. Sharon Mosley of LMC-TV will be monitoring the internet for reports of the statewide races. So that's what we'll be watching for this evening. We have some fun times ahead, but we're going to start out with some conversations that Sheila Navarra taped earlier this week with Latino voters in the village of Mamaroneck. She went to Hispanic Resource Center to get a sense of what Hispanic voters felt about this race. And I think what she concluded was that most of them think of themselves as Americans. Let's go to that tape.
Day, national candidates are fighting for the Hispanic vote, which according to the 2011 census represent the highest minority of the country.
I come to you as a candidate for the President of the United States of America. And I will govern from the principle that while this is a land of extraordinary diversity, there is much more that unites us than there is that divides us.
We are a nation of strivers and climbers and entrepreneurs, the hardest working people on earth. And nobody personifies these American values, these American traits, more than the Latino community.
This November 6, 12.2 million of Latinos are estimated to vote and evidence one more time their political power as they did in the 2008 elections. Therefore, today we're looking forward to hear the political views of the Hispanics from our local community.
First of all, I'm a person who does not believe in parties. I believe that people should have term limits. I think that the politicians, the people that we have elected, to run this country, are really like under the misconception that it's about them. It's not about them. It's supposed to be about the people. These people are elected to serve us, to make decisions in our best interest. But what happens is, and what has happened and what will always happen if we, the people, do not understand that my voice counts, my vote counts. But if I don't speak up and if I don't go out there and vote, I might as well just not complain about anything.
I think the candidates first, they focus on arguing against each other a lot. It concerns me that there are so many people in this country without an opportunity to get legalized. They have to have some way. I'm not saying maybe the 12 million illegal immigrants in this country that are here, that they could all be legalized. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they should make it a little bit easier. If you are a person that works here, that pay their taxes, that have a job, that it's willing to get an education, and it's included in society, I think they should make it a little bit easier for this person to be able to obtain their documentation.
We come here to make it better ourselves. And that's one thing that, the president right now, I think he's lacking a little bit in listening to us. He left some of the items in his list, scared away. One of them is, the one that I'm more concerned about is the economical field. He offers the same as we have in the past. My taxes went up while Obama has been in office. So I pay more taxes now than I paid before.
I personally feel very strongly towards our current president. It's easy to throw around, hot button issue words like the economy or education or jobs. But to be honest, you really need to be well informed to know how that affects your life, your community, and the lives of your families. Because if you do not, it can be very easy to be swayed by a lot of campaigning that goes on during this time.
I haven't heard any proposals in regards to immigration. I work with a lot of families who unfortunately are undocumented. And how the process, how the immigration system is right now, doesn't provide any sort of relief for undocumented families, and not even, provide ways of adjusting their status. Nothing that can, provide them with a work permit or something that can stabilize their situation in the U.S.
It is one particular issue that has been an issue since Reagan was president, is about the way to work with our governments to make immigration easier. Young people come in, people retire, but we need the young generations and the young immigrants to keep working so they can provide for the retirees. Without the immigration community, it's very hard to have a social security retirement.
And regardless of what their platform is, okay, not enough is being, addressed as far as the senior population here in all of Westchester. I think that, when people make the decision to run for office because they have concerns, that they should have concerns across the board. Not enough is being done for the seniors here in Westchester. And right now we've had an ongoing political campaign all over the place. People are running for this office, people are running for that office. And I'm the service coordinator here in this facility called Mamaroneck Towers, which is an independent facility for senior citizens. Not one candidate has come here before the elections. Not one candidate has come here even before the campaigns, kicked off, to see how the seniors are doing.
I think sometimes they kind of forget about Latinos or immigrants because 4 years ago it was, the country was in a very bad situation, so everybody was focusing on, economic collapse, and now the economy is still not that good. So it seemed like we always get it, pushed all the way to the back. So are we represented? Maybe. I don't know exactly. I don't think so sometimes. I have my opinions. Sometimes I feel represented. Sometimes I feel like, they tend to forget us.
Now, as a Hispanic, I believe that there's enough of Hispanics in this county that more should be paid, should be addressed, We have a large population of Hispanics here in Westchester, but we don't have enough representation for the Hispanic community, not only in political positions, but also in jobs in general, So I think that that's something that should be more considered.
We all get flooded. So we need the help for the mayor in place to come and sit really tight with the county and to the state to help us to solve these problems that they're always here every other year. It's not like every 10 years like it used to be. Now it's every other year that we get these high floods.
I believe voters should be an obligation. It's our duty to vote. I mean, if you're a citizen and it's your duty to vote, because if not, then nobody hears you, and your sister, your mother, nobody hears them if you don't vote.
Most of it is our own decision. I think we as individuals and adults, because when you're 18 years or 19 years, that's when you have the right to serve your country. So it's up to the individual to decide, which way he wants to be. And that's what makes America what it is today. Free enterprise, free decisions, no socialism.
As a Latina, I need to know that immigration is going to be dealt with, that it is going to be a positive force in our country. As a mother, I need to know that education is going to also be something that is truly something that I can count on for my child. And as a woman, I need to know that the types of jobs that I get are going to be respected as a man. But that's also my responsibility to make sure that when I vote, not just in this election, but in my local elections, I am holding everybody accountable. And then I hold my community accountable as well, that I let everyone know that they need to go out and vote You need to become a citizen if you are an immigrant so that you can use your voice. And as Latinos who are a beautiful force in this country, we really need to use the power that we have to make sure that the issues that are important to us are heard.
I'm not a person who believes in separating groups. Okay? Doesn't matter to me if I'm Latina or I'm not Latina. Doesn't matter to me if I'm Catholic or Jewish or Protestant or Muslim. If I'm an American, then I should count as an American. And of course, it's nice that we have a large population of Hispanics in this country, because within the Hispanic population, there's a beautiful diversity. So, we get to, each and every one of us get to enjoy each other's culture. Okay, through our food, through our arts, whatever. But to me, it's not about the fact that it's a bigger Latino population. It shouldn't be like that. Everybody should be a person. Everybody should be an American. Doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how you became an American. If you're an American, then we should all be on the same accord.
We have heard several concerns and opinions from the Latinos of our community. However, regardless your race, ethnicity, or economic status, whether you consider it a right or a privilege, nothing can change unless you voice your opinion by voting on this election day. This is Shayla Navarro reporting for LMC-TV.
Welcome back. That was a tape shot last week by Shayla Navarro at the Hispanic Resource Center. Welcoming now in the studio is Norm Rosenblum, Mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck, who's joined us to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the past week. Norm, this has been quite a week, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Actually, I describe it, the stage we're in now, as a stage of aggravation. And I say that specifically because the Village of Mamaroneck, I believe, is an extremely lucky community. We are approximately now at 85% full power, and I can do nothing but laud the volunteer fire department, the police department, the DPW. The Village of Mamaroneck is probably has recovered more for restoration and operation in any community around us, or for that matter in Westchester County. We have absolutely no blocked roads. The majority of the people are on restored electric, and we are functioning in somewhat of a normal
Well, as you drive around, you do have a sense of normalcy.
Right.
I know it's not normal for the people who still don't have power.
Correct.
It's slowly going on. For those people,
That's
I
aggravation.
And it's gotten quite cold.
Right.
The first few days weren't horrendous, but they were tolerable because the weather was milder. I have to tell you, I started to say this before, that I think that your communications with the community have been extraordinary. The use of technology has been just great. Now, clearly, people who have no power or
Right.
Wi-Fi or internet are struggling, but charging your phones and charging your devices has become a very big issue. And fortunately, businesses have been so supportive and helpful, and those who have power have extended that to people who don't.
Absolutely, and it goes beyond the village employees, who are magnificent. Hampshire Country Club has opened up their doors for charging power, meals. As a matter of fact, Dan Pfeffer started a program accepting all donations of food, clothing, and he's personally driving them out to Far Rockaway. That's a catastrophe. North Salem, Rockaway, Howard Beach, when you lose lives of children and 130 homes are burned. I mean, that's a catastrophe. We're lucky in the Village of Mamaroneck. The library is a fantastic place. People are...
become a community
absolutely,
center as
right.
well.
It's a warming center. The town of Mamaroneck, along with the village, opened up the VFW as a warming center. What happened, I've lived here all my life, and it doesn't surprise me. Every time people come together, we are a true representation of what you call the melting pot. We have the best aspects of America right here, and we're lucky.
Give us a kind of an overview of the kinds of things people experienced in the village. I mean, as far as I know, there were no catastrophes.
No major catastrophes. I can give you the worst hit area actually was Flagler Drive. For obvious reasons, the little peninsula is open. I won't give the gentleman's name, but good personal friend. The water, he happened not to evacuate. He chose not to evacuate. The water came in, blew out his back door. Luckily, they were there. They opened up the front door, and the water went straight through. They went up the second level, and if they did not do that, the house would have blown away. Carroll Avenue had 14 trees down. It would look like a war zone. Birch Hill is one of the areas that still have not gotten their power back. That is also a disaster area. Trees were bent over. Telephone poles were snapped in half. Transformers all over the place. So those are the people that are within the 15%, and justifiably so, very aggravated. The Con Ed, when we're looking at it, if you go on the daily municipal teleconferences, all communications and communities are yelling and screaming, we need more crews, restoration crews. Village of Mamaroneck, as I said before, has no blocked streets. There are many communities still have blocked streets, which you have to clear before even the electric comes in. We only have one crew, believe it or not, and that's why it's very frustrating. We just turned on one, it's called a restoration crew. It's interesting, you learn a lot. When you first report an incident, someone calls up 911, the fire department, the police department goes, they secure the area. Then they call Con Ed. Con Ed comes, and of course no one does anything until Con Ed cuts the power, and most instances cut the wires. Then they first give permission to the local municipality, in this case the Village of Mamaroneck. Village of Mamaroneck comes back with the DPW and removes the tree and the wire and so on. Once they do that, then they have to come back and work with Con Ed to get the restoration crew here to either put in a new pole, hook up the wires. We have literally hundreds of people, probably thousands in total in Westchester County for crews coming in from Florida, from Texas, from California. It's just an amazing thing. And to watch them. I mean, it's very tiring, but my job is not difficult as far as I'm concerned. I just coordinate things. But as far as the...
it's not a small job.
No.
Norm, we're going to go to a roll-in tape for just a moment. I hope you can stay with us for a
Absolutely.
bit. Okay, we're going to go to roll-in tape because we owe a little time to some of our corporate underwriters.
Absolutely.
So we have to acknowledge them right now. So let's go to the tape.
LMC-TV is brought to you in part by contributions from viewers like you and underwriting grants from the following local businesses.
Molly Spillane's, located at 211 Mamaroneck Avenue in beautiful downtown Mamaroneck. More than just a bar and grill. Experience our delicious expanded menu, including seafood and pasta, in addition to standard Irish and American fare. Watch your favorite sports teams at our bar, and be sure to try a glass of Westchester's best Guinness, indoors or outside on our spacious patio. Molly Spillane's, open 7 days a week. Visit us on the web at mollyspillane'spub.com.
Planning your wedding or next big event? Molly Spillane's in Mamaroneck offers a beautiful upstairs banquet room perfect for your needs. With great food, a full bar, private outdoor patio, and close proximity to the beautiful Mamaroneck Harbor, Molly Spillane's has everything you need to make your next event a success. Call us today or visit us on the web at www.mollyspillane'spub.com.
The Den of Antique Shop is a corporate sponsor of LMC-TV. Visit us at 216 Mamaroneck Avenue or call 698-6280.
Brewers Hardware, located at 161 East Boston Post Road. Serving the maritime and hardware needs of Larchmont and Mamaroneck since 1879. Brewers Hardware is proud to support LMC-TV in its efforts to bring quality community programming to Larchmont and Mamaroneck. Call us at 698-3232 or on the web at rgbrewer.com. Brewers Hardware. Robert's Army and Navy Store, one-stop shopping for work, play, and dress. Proud to be part of the community since 1931. Proud to be a sponsor of LMC-TV. Located at 342 Mamaroneck Avenue. Call 698-0969.
To join these local businesses in support of LMC-TV, call 381-2002, extension 201, or visit us on the website at lmc-tv.org.
Welcome back. I'm with the mayor of the village of Mamaroneck, Norm Rosenblum. Norm, again, thank you so much for being here. We were talking before about technology and the role technology played in dealing with this crisis. Now, you used email beautifully. I mean,
emails and robocalls.
And robocalls, and which most people kind of don't like, but I think in this instance, they were happy to hear from you.
I don't like robocalls myself.
No.
So.
But in this instance, it was an update of what's happening, and it's so reassuring to know, to get that kind of information, especially if it's accurate. What's on, what's happening, where should I go? What do you do when people don't have internet or phone? I mean, a lot of things were down completely.
Oh, absolutely. Some areas, what we did is we actually printed up mimeograph sheets and had the police and DPW and different people run around and just stick it in the front door. It was hard to hit everybody. We actually went to the different centers and as much as possible get the information out to everybody. I did get a lot of replies thanking for the information. And because I concentrated on the interest at the time. In the beginning of the week, the panic was about gas, which was all, to me, psychological. If you look at now, you can go around to the gas stations and you don't have to wait on the line.
Oh, you mean about having gasoline?
Absolutely. People would top it off. Normally, people would drive around with a half a tank of gas. In these times, because of the media, they keep topping it off.
So you think people just exaggerated the shortage? I mean, that it really wasn't a shortage, but they felt so insecure that they needed to have a full tank.
Because it was all unknown. When you were watching, if you had, I had no power for a week. So luckily, I had it from being in the emergency center, emergency operations center at the firehouse. So they did have emergency power on. But as I noted before, the police department telephones were down, the Village of Mamaroneck telephones were down. We had to get alternative communication.
Did we have
It's very frustrating, and it's scary for people, especially when you're told ahead of time this is an historic storm, which it did turn out to be.
Well, we're so used to wonderful response from our DPW or fire department. I mean, you just pick up the phone, ask for help. I mean, you can actually hear them arriving before you've hung up the phone. But the thought that you can't reach anybody should you have an emergency is very unsettling. Did we have any true emergencies?
I don't think in the sense of an emergency like I compared before.
Yeah.
We had no major fires.
And nobody became ill, nobody had to be evacuated.
We had no major injuries.
Remarkable.
The only one that I was told is that an elderly gentleman fell down visiting his son in the dark and broke a hip. I think that was the most, the greatest injury that was done. We were very lucky. We are a blessed community. I really believe that.
Well,
and we're blessed because of the volunteers and the...
We are. Speaking of volunteers, I think it's time for a shout out to the Red Cross. Who've been helping run shelters.
Right.
The
original shelter at the Mamaroneck High School.
Right.
Originally, when I first went there were 3 people. A couple hours later, there were 65 people. So
who were there?
It progressed,
Who stayed
and
there.
the blessing in this particular storm was, for once, the area in Washingtonville, Howard Avenue, the Heights by Warren Park did not flood. It was just an amazing thing. We were lucky in that sense. If that storm was a little more north, we would have had the southeast corner, which was all rain, and then the southwest corner, and the southeast corner, which would have been the wind, which we got the northeast corner, which is you call nor'easter. So we would have had saturating rain, and instead of the number of trees, we had 200 instances of down wires and trees. We probably would have had 500 to 1,000. It was
now,
just,
there's
again,
another
incredible.
Storm predicted to come in this
There
week.
is. We were looking at it. Originally, we were predicting 45-mile-an-hour wind, sustained winds, 65-mile-an-hour gusts. That changed because supposedly it was going out to the east. Now it's coming back, and then now it's saying that besides rain, we could get some snow. It depends on the track, and it's changing. So we'll know more about that tomorrow. And I will send out another robocall and email blast.
What is the village doing to prepare for that storm? I know everyone's exhausted,
again,
but
they're exhausted. But these guys are fantastic. We will be prepared as always with snow plows if we need it. I don't think it's going to be. I shouldn't stick my foot in my mouth, but right now I don't think we're going to have significant snowstorm. It appears to be a mix of snow and rain.
Are we worried about the condition of trees? More trees
That's
down?
a possibility. The only thing we're hoping is that if the tree survived 90-mile-an-hour gusts survived. But that brings up an interesting point. I've gotten communications from people, not only where I live, obviously on Carroll Avenue with 80-foot trees, and a lot of these trees, the problem is the root system itself is so shallow, there's no center core to hold it. And if they're 80 feet tall and 90 years old, they're going to go over. We have to start looking at taking some of these trees down.
You know, that it's an interesting question. In Manhattan, a very sore point has been the city's lack of concern, lack of care of trees in parks throughout the city. And that came back to bite them this year because, those trees are certainly more vulnerable. It seems to be so important to be taking care of trees all the time. Does the village have a maintenance program like that?
Oh, absolutely. We have, as a former chairman of the tree committee, I can tell you that it's a key element in the village. Economically also, it cleans the air. It affects the use of electricity during the summer and winter and so on. It also has an aesthetic value, which adds to the value of your home. But we have to be smart. We are now looking at trees under wire should not be growing more than 30 feet. So you replace it that way. We are a tree city. We generally try and plant at least 100 trees a year because that's what we lose on a normal basis. If you have 14 trees on Carroll Avenue alone and you have another 5 or 8 trees just on Harbor Island, as you drive in Oriente, you see those large trees. It's something that you have to plan out and look at it realistically. And
are you going to advocate for a plan to start assessing the health of trees throughout the village?
Absolutely. I don't think, if I had to choose between a tree and someone's safety, there is no choice.
But I think one of the problems has been that even new homeowners, for example, often don't know how to take care of trees. As a new homeowner 30 years ago, I didn't know anything about it. And you learn sometimes by some tragic accidents or mishaps. But who knew that you were supposed to have trees looked at every year, have an assessment of what's healthy and prune out dead wood and things like that. I wonder if there's a way the village can educate people.
That's the key word, educate.
That you have this obligation.
Right now the village has jurisdiction over anything obviously in village property and the village right away. I have mixed feelings about too much government and government telling people what to do with their own property, but at a certain time and point the village has the responsibility for the health, safety and welfare. So you can look at different ways to do that. And actually we do have some say in the planning process and so on. When someone buys a new home or builds it, you can actually look at the layout of the trees and what trees are there and so on and make suggestions.
I think that especially for a novice homeowner who hasn't a clue, I mean, you're dealing with so many issues, you don't know that you have to take care of these trees and that pruning is essential and assessment of its health is essential. Tell me now, though, let's just back up. Are there still shelters open in the village?
Right now, Holy Trinity is open from 1 to 5 during the day. Hampshire Country Club remains open. I believe the VFW still remains open as a warming center.
During the day or at night as well?
And Hampshire is open probably to 8 or 9, depending if anybody's still there. Of course, they will close.
I heard something about Hampshire having some cots available for people who might want to stay over.
If people were there, they actually have fed people. It's restricted to residents of the town of Mamaroneck, village of Mamaroneck, and the village of
So you don't have to be a member of Hampshire to go there?
No, absolutely not. And you've done an amazing thing. It's just they are a great neighbor as far as this is concerned, and I just can't laud Dan Pfeffer enough. Even more than that, the fact that again, I'll go back to we're in a stage that's aggravating to us, but for him to go out and on his own take clothing and material to people in Rockaway and place like that.
No, that's certainly commendable.
It's the volunteer thing.
Since you bring up Hampshire, let's talk about Hampshire because it's something that is brewing.
Correct.
Dan Pfeffer recently acquired the Hampshire Golf Club.
His company.
His company did. Right. It's about 2 years now, I think.
Yes, I
and
believe
it's
they
being
paid
run.
$15 million for it.
Yes, and a little chunk of change.
They outbid the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Mamaroneck, and it is being created into a controversy which we're going to host the meeting Monday night. Unfortunately, because of the hurricane and so on, it was canceled. But that meeting will be rescheduled. There are individuals, I'll be very honest as far as I'm concerned, that have their own personal agendas.
Well, let's back up for a second. Let's tell us what the plan is for the development of the Hampshire Golf Club, because there's a lot of confusion.
There's no specific plan. Basically what it is, it's a conceptual idea that Dan Pfeffer and his group came to the village and let us know that they were interested, and they are doing some conceptual ideas of how to develop, quite honestly, Hampshire Country
Some
Club.
residential housing.
Right, that's what part of it was. It's premature to consider that this is a specific idea. The process is this potential project or any other potential project in the Village of Mamaroneck goes to the building department, it goes to the planning board for site review, if need be to the ZBA. If required, may come to the Board of Trustees, which then would refer it back to the
So it's a
planning
very
board
preliminary
anyway.
plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell
You're
us
talking 2 years down the line
at
of
least.
anything.
And of course, in any plan, it's so important that the community be involved.
I can guarantee you on this, and that's the whole purpose of this meeting, this will be one of the most open processes people, because I've been obviously contacted by a lot of people directly from Cove Road because they're right next to it.
Sure.
Generally people in Orienta because they're concerned about traffic and so on. And these are things that, quite honestly, are all addressed through the site review process and so on.
What is Hampshire proposing? What kind of
Well, in
development?
essence, there are approximately 117 acres. Right now, the existing clubhouse covers about 3 acres, and their concept proposal is to take 1 more acre, use that for development, and have like empty nester in 1 building, I believe. And this, again, this is conceptual because they still have to do CEQA before they do anything else.
That's the environmental review. Yeah.
And part of their proposal was they would obviously consider deed restricting the remaining 114 acres so it could never be developed, so it would remain open, which sort of fits in my personal goal.
Wait, I'm not sure it's really clear to people. So they're proposing creating 1 building rather than doing suburban housing, individual homes.
That's what was presented.
They're presenting 1 multi-story building.
Correct.
Over the clubhouse.
Not over the clubhouse. Actually, it's behind the clubhouse that went down. And these are specifics that, again, I will emphasize
still very
as
preliminary.
conceptual, right?
Okay.
And that it would, as it was presented, and I would take 1 moment. When this was presented to the village, it was done with, I made sure that Tony Ryan was there, so it becomes apolitical. I also had, which I'm trying to institute in the village, which is a, quote, super committee, to call it anything else, a representative from the planning board, the zoning board, a planner, and so on, to make a process, any process, expedited in the village of Mamaroneck where you do not duplicate effort or finances, and that's what it is. And this is very preliminary, and I've done this like 4 or 5 times on different projects around the village already.
In other words, have people with expertise from the various boards and committees look at the plan early on to identify issues, obstacles, challenges, problems.
So the potential applicant goes before and they know ahead of time. Because right now, quite honestly, I'd say 9 out of 10 people that come to the Village of Mamaroneck probably are homeowners. Of course, the controversial ones are the large
You mean come to the board?
Right.
Okay.
Not only the village, no, even to go before the planning board and so on. The problem is you go to the planning board, then you have to go to HCZM, then you have to go maybe to ZBA, and then you come back again, and they ask for the same thing and duplicate it over and over again. If you had a simple checkoff plan first, and when you go to the building department, you need this, you need this, you need this, and
well, isn't the building department supposed to coordinate the review process? In other words, you start out with the building inspector and say, well, what do I need?
Right.
What approvals do I need? And
is it allowable under existing
right.
village code?
I mean, but that's where you start. So that's the board or the office that's supposed to guide you through the process and identify whose approvals you need and what kinds of things you need to start working on. But let's back up for a second, because I know there's a lot of confusion and a lot of stress over the suggestion of a development on Hampshire. What, as of right, may Hampshire do?
Well, right now it's the majority of that property is R20, which in terms of, for people, 20,000 square feet per
residential.
When we did our own study, when we were looking to buy the place with the town of Mamaroneck, there were approximately 110 to 120 homes that could be laid out. But again, that's not very accurate, because people are going to think you can build 120 homes. You can't, because of the area and the flooding and so on. You may have to go to such thing as cluster housing or something like that.
So as of right, we're saying the developer can do some development,
there is development,
residential
that's
development
right.
potential.
Even at R20, there's no doubt about it. Okay. And there's another aspect. This thing is so intertwined. What we just did is called a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is your steering document that tells you what you can and cannot do throughout the entire village. So you cannot just willy-nilly do a zoning change, because that in essence could be considered spot zoning if it is not in agreement with the comprehensive plan.
So what we're saying is that in order for Hampshire to put up the kind of structure they proposed initially, they would need a zoning change.
That I don't know. That would actually, they haven't presented anything yet to the village. That's the whole idea. They made a concept. We told them, you know, do your homework. They're doing their due diligence, and specifically, you cannot come to any conclusion because they haven't even presented to the Board of Trustees or the Planning Board or the Zoning Board or anything else. We have an idea what they want to do, and that's why we give them feedback. But until it's actually presented to the local government, this way the Village of Mamaroneck, nothing's to be developed, and it's going to exist and operate the way it is right now.
Okay.
So the thing is, what you said, you want open dialogue.
So
is what you want.
because people are concerned, and I know I have seen some information stating that there was a proposal for a multi-story building that would require a zoning change.
There has been no proposal presented to the Village of Mamaroneck officially.
Okay.
The only thing they did is they made a conceptual idea of what they would like to do on the property.
What would the challenges be if the proposal, if the Hampshire people decide to advocate for a zoning change? Does that have other implications in the village?
Well, anybody can propose anything they want to the village. It would have to do, the village would do its due diligence with not only site planning with the planning board. We would have input from our land use attorneys, and we would look at making a final decision as what's best for the Village of Mamaroneck. And that, again, comes back to the open process. You have to look at the immediate neighbors, the general neighbors, and the Village of Mamaroneck as a whole.
Would the village be very concerned about changing the zone, considering our local waterfront revitalization plans and the kind of precedent it might set for other areas?
I don't think we'd want to do anything to set a precedent. That's what the purpose of the existing LWRP is. And there's a misconception. The LWRP, under review now, which I'm chairman of that committee, is a rewrite to make it, bring it to the current level of New York State. We were the first community, or the second community, to actually have an effective LWRP, and it's just a rewrite. We don't want to change the character. That's why you have the LWRP, and that's why you have the comprehensive plan. We also have an all hazard mitigation plan, which allows people to now apply for federal funds when they're available, of course, which they're not now, to raise homes and stuff like that. All that is intertwined, and one action affects the other. So I will impress over and over again, this will be an open process. There is nothing that's been concluded or decided. There are no secret deals made, which some people are trying to do. There are a lot of people out there with personal agendas, and unfortunately what's happened in the communications I've had directly with the Oriental Point Association, people that live on Cove Road, there are a lot of comments and statements out there that are blatantly false and not true. Nothing has been decided, and nothing will without a completely open process.
If people want to be part of that process, can they volunteer to be on a committee? Is there
There's really no committee. You come to, there will be public meetings.
Okay.
You come and give your input and everything else.
So, but
the existing boards that would do that would be the planning board, the zoning board, if it goes to that, and the HCZM.
I don't know if you have everybody's email. If somebody wants to be on an email notification list and is not presently on one.
Absolutely. I have an email blast, and I'd like to have more people on it. nrosenblum@vomny.org, and I will add you to the email blast for anything, actually.
Okay. Norm, I have one more question before I'm going to let you go. And I also want to let people at home know that we do have the possibility for a call-in. So if somebody has a question for the mayor, call very quickly, because we're going to have to let them go. 698-6808. Norm,
or call me at Village Hall. Send an email.
Send an email at Village Hall. But if you want to talk to the mayor tonight, if you have one question, we probably have time for one or two questions. One issue that was not talked about during this campaign at all has been sport time.
Right.
And I wonder if briefly you could give us some idea of what that is.
Very quickly, sport time to me is an aggravating situation. When I came in 3 years ago, this was already a 10-year-old problem.
Right.
They have contractual rights to build where they are now. And this is not Republican and Democrat. I blame this on both Republican and Democratic prior administrations because they have the contractual right to build where they are now. The previous administration, before I came in, unfortunately gave up a termination clause in a contract. So now we can't even terminate it. We basically have, without going to a long dissertation, we have a choice. We can leave it where it is and they can build, or we can do what both sides of the equation want to do, move it behind the sewage treatment plant. Then, of course, there are other questions. Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to bond it? How
Very
many
complicated
courts and stuff
issue.
like that, right?
Will there be hearings on this as well?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be
Has it
public.
started yet?
Actually, what we're doing now is I've directed our village attorney to start negotiating with Sport Time with certain questions and that I have and concerns that before we even start looking at this.
So nothing's going to happen.
Open.
Nothing's going to happen
Absolutely
quickly.
not.
So we're going to get some
And again,
notification.
it's going to be open. Nothing jammed through. No secret deals. Believe me. Not while I'm mayor. There will be no secret deals.
Norm, thanks so much for
Thank you.
being
It's
with
a
us.
pleasure. Thank
Stay
you.
with us for a moment.
Absolutely.
We're going to a roll-in tape. Thank the mayor of the village of Mamaroneck for joining us. I know he's running out to headquarters. Let's go to the tape.
Founded in 1983 as a nonprofit organization, Larchmont Mamaroneck Community Television is your source of community events, entertainment programming, and public government education access broadcasting. It provides free facilities and equipment to community members for the creation of non-commercial programs that air on LMC-TV. LMC has 2 studio locations. Studio 1, located in Mamaroneck High School Palmer Unit, open 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Studio 2, located on 145 Library Lane, next door to the Emlyn Theater, open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Classes and workshops are available to people of all ages and skill levels.
That's you, buddy.
Learn directing, field production, studio production, and video editing. There's even a summer film workshop for kids. You can learn to use a number of production editing tools, including studio and field cameras. Edit your videos using Final Cut Pro. Even produce or direct your own show. Classes are offered at both studios throughout the year. Day classes from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. are offered at Studio 2, while evening classes 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. are offered at Studio 1. Want to film a show or make a movie? Equipment rentals are available, as well as studio space and access to editing software. Both studios feature a number of cameras, tripods, and microphones. Everything you need to start putting your ideas on your TV screen.
Now we know what we're doing.
Both Studio 1 and Studio 2 depend on volunteers for a number of things. Volunteers can help with production, publicity, fundraising, you name it. Your ideas and support are always needed. Volunteers make up a large part of the LMC community, which is why your help is always needed at either of these 2 great studios. Everyone is welcome to come in and help out.
This is what happens after a show.
Want to watch LMC-TV? Residents of Larchmont and Mamaroneck can watch LMC-TV on Cablevision, channels 75, 76, and 77. Residents all over Westchester can watch on Verizon Fios, channels 34, 35, and 36. Missed something? Now you can watch videos on demand at the LMC-TV website. For more information on how to sign up for classes, volunteer, become a member, or watch videos on demand, please visit www.lmc-tv.org. That's www.lmc-tv.org. Or contact Studio 1's coordinator, Dina Schumacher, at 914-698-6808. Or Studio 2's coordinator, Christina Carino Forrest, at 914-381-0131. LMC's Studio 1 is open Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Studio 2 is open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So why wait? Come in now and don't just watch.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Joining me now in the studio is Nancy Seligson, Supervisor of the Town of Mamaroneck. Thanks so much for being here, Nancy. It's been a rough week for you, I'm sure. You must be exhausted. Have you power?
No, I do not have power restored in my home, so we are living in the dark and the cold.
Oh my gosh, and where are you showering? Town center?
Actually, I'm lucky to have hot water still in my home, so we are able to use that.
It's mighty cold in the house now.
This morning was very cold, yes.
Oh my gosh, what percentage of the town is still out?
Really only about 22%, which is fabulous because at the height of the storm, right afterwards, we had 70% of the town without power. So we've made quite a bit of progress, but we know it is not fast enough and it is not enough, as I keep saying. It's been a really difficult time trying to work with Con Ed. I participate in a daily conference call with the county, with all the municipalities, and a daily conference call with Con Ed. And on every conference call with the county, we hear the other municipalities complaining with the same complaints we have, that there's no information from Con Ed, there's no coordination, there's no specific information as to where they're going to be and what they're going to restore. But I also hear about how the town of Mamaroneck is a lot better than many other municipalities. There are some that still have 50% of their population without power. There's some that have 30 roads still closed. We only have 5 roads closed in the town of Mamaroneck. So we've made great progress, but it is really difficult, and residents, understandably so, are just getting so frustrated and so upset. And when they're cut off from electricity, they're not able to see the television, to go on the computer and really see the extent of the devastation throughout the county, and to understand that we're actually in a better position than a lot of municipalities, but that everyone is having a very difficult time.
Do they communicate with you somehow?
Yes, and I'm so anxious to say this on LMC-TV, that please go to the townofmamaroneck.org, the website for the town of Mamaroneck, and sign up to receive our robocalls and our email blasts and be updated. I'm doing daily robocalls to the entire town, and you can sign up with your home phone, your cell phone, your work phone, as many phones as you want, basically, so that somehow we will get to you. We also have daily email blasts and daily updates on the website, and we've been doing that since the start of the storm.
I think technology has been amazing, even for those of us who lost power,
yes,
because very graciously, places like the Hampshire Golf Club,
yes,
and anybody who has power has extended themselves. Bring your power strip,
yes,
plug in, you can charge here. I mean, so gracious about it.
Yes.
And that's been our link to the real world. Yeah. Just let me just tell viewers at home that if you do have a question for Nancy, Supervisor of the Town of Mamaroneck, you can call us at 698-6808. We'll be able to take just a couple of questions before Nancy has to leave.
I have fielded probably 100 calls in the past couple of days, and over 100 emails from residents who have been cut off, who haven't been getting our daily updates, and it's so frustrating for them to have been cut off and not understand all the work that's gone into trying to restore the power to everyone, all residents of the town.
Well, you know, our governor has been extraordinarily tough on the utilities. I have a little crank-up radio, so I've been in touch all week long. And he made it very clear that he held utilities accountable for getting power up, and they were not, being given a gift or a buy. This was a business, and I think he was actually called to task for being too tough. But do you think he's right, that they are being inadequate?
I think that their communication has certainly been inadequate, and it could greatly be improved. I don't know how much more they can do in the sense of really restoring any faster, because the extent of the devastation of this storm is truly extraordinary, and each individual situation is very complicated, it seems. However, there is no question in my mind that they could tell us on a daily basis what their work packets are, where they intend to work, what they intend with the outcome to be, how many crews we will have in each municipality.
And you think that would assuage some of the concern?
I think it really would, because we would understand what the expectations were. We'd be able to communicate that. People would be able to plan their lives better.
So it's a PR problem. So they may be working as hard as they can. They're just not telling you about it.
And I also do believe that they are not as well organized organized as they should be, because even the Con Ed reps that are sitting with us in our Emergency Operations Center do not have the information. They do not know how many crews are in the communities. They do not know what the priority sites are that they've been given. We as a town give them our priorities every single day. We highlight them, we insist upon them, and we fight for them to go to those places and restore power, and yet we don't have the specific information as to when they're going to get there.
Well, it's about time that they came online,
yes.
if you will. And I think you folks are going to make them do it. You're certainly demonstrating how to use technology in an effective way.
I think you're right. And I think that the public is also so upset with this incredible disruption of service and incomplete restoration and difficult restoration. I've encouraged people to call the Public Service Commission, to call the governor and let them know, because the local governments are not being given enough information, and we're certainly not being given enough support in restoring the community.
Tell me this, what has the town done? Has the town center become kind of a meeting place for people in need?
Well, unfortunately, the town center did not have power until yesterday. So we were running the government out of the Emergency Operations Center in the fire department. And we had all the heads of our departments there. We were able to deploy our people in a very effective and organized way, which I was very, very proud of and pleased to see. But many of the administrative folks could not come to work and do the regular work. So yesterday, Monday, was our first day back in the town center. But people have been coming in. We're certainly welcoming to everyone. If people feel like they need to plug in there, it's fine. But you know, we have a shelter that's been running for 24 hours a day. We first started the shelter at the Mamaroneck High School at the height of the storm, and we had about 30 people there for a couple of days, and then there was a day where everyone checked out and said they weren't coming back. So we closed that shelter, but then within a few days we realized the power was not coming back anytime soon. It was getting colder. So we have what we call a warming shelter at the VFW at 1288 Boston Post Road, and that is open for people to come in, charge their cell phones, have some cookies, have some coffee, take a nap, take a break, watch TV, and we have people in and out of there.
And is it open all day?
It is all day and all night.
Oh, really? So
yes.
If you really have no power and you can't stand the cold, you could bring
Absolutely.
a sleeping bag or just go with other cots
yes.
or things there.
And we're encouraging people to take advantage of that.
Nancy, as you know, we're waiting for election results.
Of
so
course.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at some very preliminary results that I've just received in the town. And well, actually, this is in the village. We don't have anything in the town. There is one seat, one council seat.
Yeah. Eleanor and a judgeship.
Oh, yes, and a judgeship, right. You're absolutely right, a contested judgeship. But we don't have any information about that. We do have some preliminary information at 9:53. This is in the village of Mamaroneck, and these are the numbers that we're going to report. You can help me right here if you like. Leon Potok.
783.
Alyssa Miller.
817.
Andre Bermudez Hallstrom.
775.
And Dan Gallagher.
882.
Okay, and they are way ahead so far of their Republican challengers, George Belcito.
With 508.
Dennis Cuccinella.
522.
And Michael Sudano.
555.
So I guess that's a very, very strong lead in the village of Mamaroneck for the Democratic candidates.
And how many districts is this, though?
Well, we think it may just be 3 districts. It's
a small,
very preliminary results. I only say that because often the turnout is so small. Of course, this is a presidential race, and we will expect more turnout. But, you know, 100 votes in the village of Mamaroneck is usually a huge margin, or can be a huge margin, and this is certainly more than that.
Yes.
So we're going to try to get some graphics up so that you can watch these numbers, but we'll be bringing you more results. Once they start to come in, they usually come in very quickly.
Yes.
And we certainly are looking for results in the town of Mamaroneck as well, and we're looking for results in the state Senate race, George Latimer's race, and the state assembly race.
Yes.
So it's the 37th senatorial district and the 91st assembly district, unless I've gotten that backwards, which I sometimes do.
I think that was right.
I think it was right. But we'll be bringing you those results as soon as we have it. Since I have you here, there's so many issues I really want to talk to you about in the town. I hope you're going to come back. You're not going to.
Of
We're not going to
course.
get to talk about everything.
No.
One, of course, is reval, and people are asking what's happening with it. What's the status of reval or reassessment?
It has been an ongoing effort and project, and we have completed the data collection phase of the reval. So that means that people have gone out and they have inspected the different parcels throughout the entire town. They've either had an interior inspection or an exterior inspection. We were very pleased that we got an overall interior inspection rate of 35%, which is very high for this type of endeavor.
That means people let the inspectors
Exactly.
in voluntarily.
Exactly.
And why is that important?
That gives you the most accurate picture of the parcel, and that's really what gives you the best reval in terms of information and accuracy. So we were hoping for those kind of figures, which is great, and even in some parts of the town we had up to 43 and 45% interior inspections. So after the data collection phase, each parcel was sent a data card which showed them the information that they collected, and they asked the owners of those parcels whether it was accurate data, whether they had any discrepancies or any changes with it. They were invited to come and speak to GAR Associates, the contractor who's performing the reval for us, or they could just fill in a form and write in the changes.
Were the changes accepted? Or did it require another inspection?
As far as I know, I think they were reconciled. All of them were reconciled. So meaning they were accepted. And now the GAR Associates is actually analyzing the different neighborhoods and trying to set values to the different areas of the community. They're trying to identify different neighborhoods and then identify similar or like parcels within those neighborhoods. And they will look at other valuations, they will look at recent sales, they will look at similar houses. And in February of 2013, everyone will receive a postcard that will give you a base value of that new assessment. It'll be based on what you paid in taxes in 2011. So it will show you that if you paid X in taxes in 2011, with the same parameters governing 2011, but with your new assessment, your taxes would now be Y. So it will give you a way to really measure the two. And again, folks will be invited to come and set appointments with GAR Associates if they have questions, if they want to contest it, if they want to talk about it. We'll also be running seminars, informational seminars about the whole valuation process and how it works before and after this postcard goes out, because we know people are going to have a lot of questions. It's actually complicated math.
It's very complicated. And I think there's a legitimate concern on people's part, and what's this going to do? I mean, everybody thinks they're paying too much in taxes. I don't think anybody's ever stood up and said, oh, I'm not paying enough, please take more.
I haven't heard that yet.
You haven't heard that. So I think there's a certain wariness. Let me just clarify. Is the reassessment in the unincorporated section of the town and in the villages as well?
It's in every parcel within the entire town of Mamaroneck.
So
it does include the village of Larchmont and half of the village of Mamaroneck as well.
Okay, what does that do to the assessments in place in those villages?
The villages can opt to accept the town's new role for their own taxing purposes, or they can decide not to accept it. So the new assessment will guide the taxes for your county and your school taxes and your town taxes in all those jurisdictions. But when it comes to your village tax, the village of Larchmont can decide whether they're going to go by their own assessment or the town's new assessment. The village of Mamaroneck can do the same.
Do you have any sense of what those villages are going to do?
You know, our sense right now is that the village of Mamaroneck seemed like they were interested in accepting the town's assessment, and the village of Larchmont had not yet decided.
Well, of course, in the village of Mamaroneck, it might help to rationalize things, because half of the village of Mamaroneck is in the town of Rye, which has already done a reval a couple of years ago. So it might make sense to update the entire village, unless there's a hue and a cry and people are very, very upset.
And also, this assessment, I want to reiterate, as we've spoken about so many times in the past, is really to create equity and fairness in the taxation. Right now, we have not had a revaluation since 1968. That means some people are paying far too much in taxes, some people are paying just the right amount, some people are paying far too little. And the people who are paying far too little are really benefiting from those who are paying too much. And we want to, you know, our responsibility as board members is a fiduciary responsibility to fairly tax the community. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, in the state of New York, your taxes are based on the value of your real estate. So it's really incumbent upon us to value that real estate accurately and therefore apportion the taxes.
Is there a limit of how high or how what percentage increase someone would have to bear? For example, when you say somebody's paying too little, they are probably paying too little in relative value. However, I don't think there's anybody who's paying a small amount of taxes in our communities. So you could see somebody's taxes go up by $20,000, $10,000. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the parcel, and it depends on when it was last valued, and it depends on the changes in the neighborhood.
But you could see the argument by people saying, well, I mean, I just accepted what was here. I didn't come in and say, please tax me more, but I'm still paying a lot of money. Is there any way to phase in a tax increase so someone doesn't bear a tremendous hit?
We did look at that as a possibility because we were concerned about the same kind of issue. It's never been done in New York State, a phased-in reassessment, because it is such a complicated process. They actually don't know if it could be done in New York State, which, you know, doesn't sound very positive in terms of the state, but we don't have that option right now.
Well, have you had anybody say to you things like, oh my gosh, my taxes can go up $20,000 or $30,000 or double, and what am I going to do? I'm not prepared for that?
We haven't had anyone say that yet because we don't know that yet.
Okay.
We really don't, and we're going to have to see, but as what we know will probably happen statistically is that 1/3 of folks' taxes will go up, 1/3 will stay the same, 1/3 will go down. We don't think that there will be any great big changes in the revals we've seen in other parts of the county. The successful ones, we have not seen tremendous differences in taxes. So I really can't answer that right now. We don't think it's going to happen, though.
When will the reval be complete?
People will actually pay their new taxes based on the new valuation in 2014.
Okay. And what kind of effect will that have on the communities, on the schools, on the budget process in the schools or the town?
It will have absolutely no impact whatsoever in terms of the amount of taxes that we all take in, because it's what is called a budget neutral process. We will still collect the exact same amount of taxes. It will just be apportioned differently.
It will just be fairer,
right.
You're saying.
There is one thing I want to point out, though, for the budget, and this is really one of the major reasons for doing reval. We currently pay out, as an entire community, between the villages, the town, and the school district, millions of dollars a year. Millions in certiorari and small claims practices. That means that people are coming forward, contesting their taxes. We cannot stand behind the roll because it is so out of date, and we have to negotiate or go to court to figure out the new taxes, and we then have to pay them back for the taxes they shouldn't have been paying over the years.
So that has a certain unsettling effect on the budget process because you
A
don't
huge
know
one.
how much you're going to be
Right.
paying out.
Right. So we will save money in that respect, and we will be able to stand behind the roll, and we think there will be far fewer settlements and far fewer payouts because the values will be defensible. So we think it will help our budget tremendously in that way.
Okay. Now, the town has been very proactive. I know that you had a survey of
Yes.
residents requesting the kinds of things they're concerned about, and certainly taxes have always
yes.
been of great concern. How was the survey received in the town?
It was well received. We had a very valid response rate. It was not a tremendous amount of people compared to the total population, but you don't actually expect that for these kinds of surveys. So we had about 1,200 responses. And
out of how many possible responses?
I think it was, we were looking at a full population of 28,000. But it is a valid response statistically. You know, when you look at the science of surveying, it's a statistical survey and amount. What was very interesting to us is that the consultant who helped us with the survey said she had never ever seen so many people add additional answers. There were other categories for each question. We had something like 1,200 others that were filled in passionately and interestedly and seriously, and she found that to be fascinating. And it was very interesting for us because we're looking at such a difficult time in budgeting going forward. We really wanted to ask folks, what do you think are the most important things about our town? What are the values you hold dear? How would you like to see us go forward? And that really was helpful. And I think it was a nice way to get people to engage with the town.
I want to hear more about the kind of responses you got, but we have some results in the town of Mamaroneck. This is, again, with only 4 districts reporting. It's just shortly before 10 o'clock. Jane Elkanini, I think is how she says it, with 701 votes. Jay Rubin, 323. Ron Meister, Town Justice, 694. And Bob Sternbach, 325. Again, these are only 4 districts reporting. This is not at all over yet, but those are the results for now. Getting back to the survey, did anybody come up with some very interesting propositions or ideas for you to study?
We didn't have too many sort of out-of-the-box
no innovations.
Suggestions. But interestingly, people were open to some things that we had suggested.
Such as?
You know, we talked about the garbage collection, and would people be willing to have garbage collection once a week rather than twice a week?
It's a cost-cutting measure.
Yes, as a way to try and reduce our expenses and our budget. We talked about, well, a lot of people brought up the issues of consolidation and shared services. That really was an overall theme throughout all the responses. We were able to analyze the responses from residents from the unincorporated town, the village of Larchmont, and the village of Mamaroneck. And interestingly enough, throughout all 3 municipalities, the responses were very, very similar. The percentages of responses were very similar. You couldn't find any great difference between the 3 municipalities. I didn't find it so surprising. I happen to think that we do all live in one community. You know, we have a pretty much one school district and another, but we do shop and live and dine and play and work together in this sort of larger Mamaroneck, Larchmont community. But I know some people found that very interesting.
Huh. Now, I know you legitimately so, and as your colleagues have always made a point of the way you've developed mergers and consolidation of services and shared services wherever possible. But I haven't seen anything innovated in some years. I know the Joint Sanitation Commission has been operating for a good deal
of yes,
time.
A very long time.
And I know that you folks talk to each other, municipal leaders talk to each other. Do you see any opportunities on the horizon for shared services or mergers or consolidations that really, really would be innovative?
I think that we will see them on an incremental basis. I think that the political leap of faith that would have to take place for a true consolidation or merger of municipalities is just too large to jump at head on or bluntly. It's going to be incremental changes of shared services and cooperation, which we do, as you know, on a daily basis, but where we look more and more to how can we do this better. Actually, I think the storm was a good opportunity to look at how we could do this better. The shelter that we opened at both the high school and the VFW was a tri-municipal shelter. So we all worked to put that together.
And it makes sense to have one shelter.
Oh, sure.
Not to have separate ones. merged the senior centers,
Yeah.
was it about 2 years ago?
Exactly. I was just going to mention that, and that's worked wonderfully. We've been able to expand programs. We have a much larger population that we're serving, and it really has been a wonderful a merger, really, in that sense. We have one little thing on the horizon right now. The village of Mamaroneck is looking at buying a goose pooper picker-upper. And we all said, from the town and from the village of Larchmont, we want to be in on it. So we are talking about buying an actual vacuum-type machine that could be used in different areas. I mean, that's a tiny little and silly kind of example, but it is the kind of thing that we think of. You know, how can we purchase things together? How can we use equipment and share equipment? How can we help one another out? And you know, when one of the municipalities is down certain employees or certain individuals in their staffing, we always help one another out. You know, we're able to say we can lend you that.
Well, there's lots of mutual aid, I guess is the right word.
Yes.
But I think the true mergers, I mean, we're talking about mergers of fire departments and police departments, municipal buildings. I think about the support staff for each board. I mean, those are the kinds of things that would probably bring, in my opinion, true savings. I know we're a long way from that, but I always thought, well, the economy would have to get bad enough for people to embrace those ideas. Aren't we there yet?
I think we are being pushed there, not just from the economy, but certainly from this 2% tax levy cap that the governor has imposed.
Without any reduction in mandates.
Right, so that in fact, we're looking at a budget right now where the pension increases take up 2/3 of any increase that we would have in the following year, which is just unrealistic for the town.
Okay, you know, Nancy, we've gotten some new numbers. Let's talk about it for a moment. In the town of Mamaroneck, Councilwoman Jane Eney, $1,599 to Jay Rubin's
$843.
Okay, and Ron Meister, Town Justice, with
$1,572
to Bob Sternbach's
with $843.
Okay, so it's a very clear lead in the town of Mamaroneck. Again, these are not final numbers. There are about 7 districts reporting from what we know. We do have some information from a state race, and that is in the race of the state senate, George Latimer and Bob Cohen, with George Latimer at
$12,997
and Bob Cohen
at $11,208.
So that's pretty close for a state race, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so too. And this is just the town of Mamaroneck reporting.
As far as I know, yes, it's 77 of 318 districts.
Oh, okay, so that's more than the
it's
town.
more than the town of Mamaroneck, but
this has got to be.
But it's still 77 of 318 districts, so it's pretty early, and that's actually a little bit tight.
Yes.
So we will be watching, and we're going to try to get some graphics up with those numbers so that you can follow along with us. Yes, things are coming in a little slowly tonight. Certainly for the village of Mamaroneck races. I mean, those are usually over by about 10.
You're right.
It's usually pretty clear by then, unless there's been some problem.
Well, there could be impoundments going on. I know that there was talk of that earlier this evening.
Impoundments of the local machines.
Yes.
In the village.
Yeah, not in the village of Mamaroneck. I actually heard of it in the town of Mamaroneck, and when I went to close a poll in the village of Larchmont, they were about to impound the machines.
And what are the reasons that they would impound it?
It could be any kind, so many different reasons. I was not given a reason, but I believe that any of the candidates could call for an impoundment or a recount.
And they don't have to have a justification?
I'm sure they do have to have some reason, but I think it is very wide open for those reasons.
I think it's pretty remarkable that an election went forward today,
Yes.
and that all of the polling places in the town and the villages were open. I really didn't see that a week ago. I didn't know how that could happen.
I didn't see it 2 days ago.
Oh, dear.
We were really surprised. I mean, as I said earlier, we have had daily conference calls with the county and daily conference calls with Con Ed. And on Sunday, we were all very, very anxious about the polling places and the schools all being opened so that we could resume school and hold this election. But thankfully, we were able to do it.
All schools were open as of Monday?
There were still 4 schools in the county that were not open, but certainly all our schools were open.
Okay. And how about, I mean, you think about the kids who are in homes with no light and no power, although school may be a haven if there's some place to go, at least it's warm and and powered up.
Yes.
And someone would give them a hot meal, I'm sure.
I think that school is probably viewed as a true haven this week for kids, and I think they probably were bored out of their minds also.
Eager to go to school?
Well, that's what I heard.
Nancy, if you had anything that you really wanted to talk to your constituents in the town of Mamaroneck about something that's happening on the horizon, what would that be?
Well, it's hard to say because my mind is filled with Storm Sandy. And that is that I would really like to tell everyone to please sign up for communication with the town through our website. Go to www.townofmamaroneck.org. Please go to the Connect with the Town, Communicate with the Town icon, and give us your email, give us your cell phone numbers so that in the future we can communicate. I am communicating on a daily basis about Restoration Now, but even other town events that really people should be informed about and know about. And that's really the most efficient and effective way for us to communicate. I mean, some of the interesting things we're doing is we are renovating the ice rink. In the process of that. The ice rink is the largest energy user in the town. It is 23 years old and its equipment is failing. So we have to renovate it no matter what. But I'm working very hard with our staff and with actually volunteers from the town who are in this kind of business to try and renovate it in the most environmentally sensible way so that we can both save money and save energy.
Now, is the town rink used to its capacity?
Yes.
Okay.
The town rink is one of the most beloved resources we have. It's so interesting to me. I have people come up to me and tell me that they actually moved to the town of Mamaroneck because of the ice rink. We have skating school, we have ice hockey teams, we have ice hockey teams from out of the community that rent the ice. The ice rink actually generates so much money for the town that it actually subsidizes other recreation programs. So it's a money saver for us, a money maker for us, and a wonderful resource.
Who knew? Now, some years ago, the town opened the ice rink in the summer. Is it still open in the summer?
No,
it was an experiment.
Yeah, we use the ice rink actually not as an ice rink, but as a play space for the camp, for the Hommocks Park camp in the summertime. But with the renovation of the ice rink, we will be looking to have ice in the ice rink 12 months a year, which will give us the opportunity to have and use it as an ice rink in the summer.
Is there interest in it in the summer?
You can't believe the interest in hockey. There is so much interest in hockey. In fact, there are special teams that are eager to use the ice almost 12 months a year and all times of the day and night.
Remarkable.
It is.
Who
It's
knew?
very interesting.
I know that you have places to go, but I can't let you leave without talking about some of the environmental things that you're so involved with. Certainly Save Our Sound and the Long Island Sound Task Force and so many other projects. But I know that there's been a lot of work that the town's done at the duck pond.
Yes.
And that's been a kind of saving flood mitigation.
Yes.
Tell us briefly what you've accomplished there.
Okay, many projects have occurred at the duck pond. And what we've done is we were able to use federal, state, and county money to actually put a valve in at the duck pond so that we can drain it in advance of a storm, just as we do with the Larchmont Reservoir, so that it can hold more water to help for flooding downstream, which is in the village of Mamaroneck.
Amazing. Nancy, I'm going to stop you for one moment because we have final numbers in the village of Mamaroneck, and that's just, we don't want to sit on those.
No.
Okay, this has just come in now. The final numbers, it looks like it's a very clear Democratic sweep. Leon Potok with
3,153.
Lissa Miller
with 3,307.
And Andre Bermudez Hallstrom
3,103.
And Dan Gallagher, incumbent village justice
3,662.
Okay, and the numbers are much lower for the Republican trustee candidates, George Belcito
at 2,710.
Dennis Cuccinella
2,847.
Mike Sudano
2,933.
And Jennifer Beanstalk Cohen
is 2,436.
Okay, that's a very clear margin in the village. I mean, I don't know what the percentage turnout is yet, but we'll be able to give that to you in a little while. Certainly the turnout is higher than it normally is in village elections.
Yes,
because it's a presidential race. But it looks like a very clear Democratic sweep. I don't know if that heralds in any portent for what's going to happen on the national level. I don't know. We're kind of in a little bubble here. I don't know what's going on out there. But it looks like it's a very clear Democratic sweep in the village of Mamaroneck. So we were getting back, we were talking about the duck pond and what it's accomplished for people in the rest of the community.
Well, it also has a screen that holds back a lot of the sediment that is coming down from above, which allows it to not silt up as fast, and we also dredged it quite a bit so that it can hold more water. And all of those things are really for flood mitigation and flood help. The other thing that the county required us to do with one of our grants was to plant native grasses and species around the border of the duck pond. So it looks very different than what people were accustomed to. It's a much wilder look. But these plants actually prevent some of the runoff from the streets, roads, and driveways, parking lots, and everything from going into the duck pond.
And they're very attractive.
I think they're very attractive.
But let me just back up for a second. So by doing this work in the duck pond, it's affected flooding in the village of Mamaroneck?
Yes, because the sheldrake actually ends up going in, merging with the Mamaroneck River and going into the Mamaroneck village.
So who needed the Army Corps of Engineers? Who figured this out?
Oh, that's a good question. It really started, we've kind of always known all this, but it was really started to be put together with the county's flood mitigation task force. And we connected all the dots, if you will, and how these areas, streams, rivers, ponds, all connect to one another and relate to one another. And we realized that if we could make some changes here, it could have some mitigating effects on the other end. It's not going to cure the flooding. There are just certain storms that we are not built to withstand at this point. And we have increased runoff because of storms, because of development above us. But we have had much less flooding for some of the smaller storms that we've had in the past few years, and that's been really helpful.
Great. Well, it's an amazing, amazing accomplishment. I know that we're going to be going to a tape about the Westchester County Fair Campaign Practices Committee. I can't believe I said that right. I never get that right. And as soon as we have that tape queued up, we're going to go to that in just a few moments. I want to thank you for being here. There's so many things that you folks are doing. How do you work with the village of Mamaroneck? Just tell me that before we let you go. I know that there are a lot of coordinated projects with the village of Larchmont. It seems just to be, I guess, organic. Right. The library is one of the, one of the things that you share. Are there any things that you share with the village of Mamaroneck?
Yes, well, as we mentioned earlier, the senior center, which works incredibly well. Our volunteer ambulance corps are related, so that's coordinated out of the town. We work well together. We are talking to one another all the time, trying to, as you said, mutual aid situations, and not just fire and police mutual aid, but staffing mutual aids, equipment mutual aid, all kinds of things. Recreation is something that we share and work together on. So there's lots of areas. And, with the town of Mamaroneck is charged by state law to collect the taxes for the counties and the schools. So we do that for the village of Mamaroneck too.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I think.
We don't get to keep it all, I wish.
Well, I want you to stay for a few moments. Perhaps you'll like to see this. I talked with Milt Hoffman last week, former senior editor of the Journal News, and with Susan Schwartz, who is a board member of the Westchester County League of Women Voters. And she is also the chair of the Westchester County Fair Campaign Practices Committee. And we talked about how the committee was founded and what it does today. The committee was Milt's idea, actually, which was embraced very enthusiastically by the League. And it was created in 1991. it's had its work cut out for it, and in fact, it played a prominent part in the Village of Mamaroneck elections this year because it entertained a complaint against Village of Mamaroneck Republican candidates for trustee and took them to task for erroneously claiming their Democratic opponents had advocated for a 30% decrease in police funding. Now, there aren't a whole lot of communities that have a fair campaign practices committee, but the objective is to keep the standards of campaigns high and have people not lie about things, which of course has been a big issue in the presidential campaign.
Yes, it certainly has.
PolitiFact. I think that's what we need in locally as well, but we have this committee. We're going to bring you part of my conversation with Milt Hoffman and with Susan Schwartz. Nancy, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you.
So much, Susan and Milt, for being here with me. I know this is an extraordinarily busy time for you. Milt, let me ask you first, how did you get the idea for the formation of this committee?
Well, I had been a political reporter, a politics writer for the newspaper, what is now called the Journal News. It was the Westchester Rockland newspapers, and I covered politics, and I saw a lot of ethical violations, and nobody was doing anything about it. We wrote an editorial and asking that somebody come forward and create a committee to handle these things. And the League of Women Voters in Monroe County had such a fair campaign practices committee up in Rochester, and I was aware of it. And about a couple of days later, I get a call from the League of Women Voters. They'd like to come in and talk, and they came in, and before the end of the year, before that election that year, they had created rules and regulations. They had put together 7 people, I think 6 or 7 people on the board, and they had their first hearing and ruling just like 2 or 3 days before the election.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And candidates accept the authority of the committee?
Well, they did along. Well, what they did, the committee, and it wasn't my idea, but the committee involved the parties. They asked the political parties, I think there were 4 at the time, that send representatives. They would not be voting members, but they could partake in the questioning and they'd be involved in this thing.
Now, one of the things Milt and I were talking about a little before we started taping was the fact that election time obviously is very busy, and this year you have a record number of complaints.
No, last year.
Last year.
Last year.
And that was 26 complaints?
Yes.
That's right.
So you aim to hold a hearing on every complaint filed with you?
No. We won't accept every valid complaint.
Okay.
And there were 26 valid complaints.
So that
year.
means in the short period before the election, your committee members met 26 times.
Well, we sometimes heard 2 in a night.
Okay. You can consolidate. Yes. I mean, busy people, I'm very impressed that you keep
and we try to get our findings out that night or first thing the next morning.
Okay. What are the criteria for filing a complaint? What complaints will you accept?
A candidate has to file a complaint against another candidate or political party. And it has to be something that is either false or misleading. And we do not judge ethical, financial, or ethical complaints. There are government bodies that do that, election boards and the state. But when a candidate puts out material that the other deems to be false or misleading, we take those cases.
Does the committee ever seek or take on its own initiative?
Never.
Any action?
The only thing is if a candidate who is filing a complaint does one of 2 things, goes to the press to say they're filing a complaint, or afterwards takes the finding out of context and just uses part of it without quoting the whole thing, then we on our own will issue a finding. And we have done that several times this year. Most years we have a couple.
Okay. So it's not even ethical for someone to say, I'm bringing a complaint against against
No.
X
Well,
candidate.
there's a reason for it. The reason for it is that the committee in its earlier days discovered that some people would say they're going to bring a complaint. They get the publicity in the newspaper that their opponent did something misleading, and then they don't follow through on it. And it got in the paper, and there was no resolve. So the committee at some time wrote this rule into its document.
Let's bring up the fact that we do have a manual which has been a work in progress. Every single year we go through and we try to improve it from our experience. And anybody can go online to look up www.faircampaignpractices.org and read the manual, read our guidelines, and read cases that we've had. You can read the findings.
And so if somebody felt that they could contribute and wished to be part of that committee, they would approach the League of Women Voters?
Yes, or the committee.
Or the committee itself and say, I'd like to put myself forward.
Right.
Can people re-up?
Yes, they can.
How many terms may you serve?
We do not have a limit yet. Okay. That's something probably under discussion as we have to cycle up.
People are so been with us for a long time, and they're very good. We don't want to lose them. They're terrific. It's hard. It's something when you get on the committee, you have to. It takes a while before you get adjusted to the questioning and everything else. But once they're on, they're terrific, and we don't want to lose them.
Now, when you say a complaint has to be filed by a candidate against another candidate, could somebody outside the process who sees something happening that they find unethical come before you?
No.
They can't, even though it might be egregious, but if the candidate won't file the complaint, you won't take any initiative?
No, we only deal with candidates. We deal with the general public. There is a commission in California, I believe, that's patterned after us, but they're actually a state commission that does this, and they take complaints from the general public, and they have hearings. But we're not set up for that.
Now, of course, information exchange is so rapid and so available to everyone, and people can say anything. I mean, you put something on YouTube, or I mean, you know all the sources.
It happens.
Social media, Twitter and Tumblr, and I don't even know what else. Of course, Facebook. How has that affected the work of the committee?
It certainly has made it less expensive. In the beginning, we were very grateful to get a grant from Westchester Community Foundation to pay for all the mailings. We had to overnight all these packets all the time, and that was very expensive. And now, the only cost we have is for our website.
For the website maintenance.
So they will file by email to our coordinator, and she then will make sure that they have contacted their opponent, and they have to show proof that the opponent was contacted by mail or by email, and then and everything is done. Our committee members are notified when there's a complaint is filed. The coordinator will send out the complaint and say, should we hear this complaint? And then in minutes, people get their email and then say, they read the complaint and they say, yes, we should hear it. And she'll say what days, and then we can do everything by email.
But I guess the point I'm getting at, has the technology and the rapidity of information exchange and the ability of anybody to say anything without even attribution, has that affected the quality of the complaints you receive?
Not really.
Well, so it made us go into a new area because we don't. If somebody does something on cable TV, we don't. There's no record of it, or sometimes you don't know what was said, and email. People have their own. Of course, the emails. Things could disappear, so there's no record. It was very hard. So we've adjusted our rules to try to deal with these things.
We were talking a little earlier about the fact that anybody can say anything. We'll say, somebody says something terrible about candidate X. What's the responsibility of that candidate, or does he or she have a responsibility to refute what was said?
In our guidelines, we ask that a candidate who has material put out other than by that candidate If the candidate disagrees with it, that candidate should disavow that material. And we've come now into this age where in our local elections now, we have out-of-state money coming in, and candidates, we had an instance where we had a candidate disavow at our meeting, disavow something that was sent out by an out-of-state party. And we do expect that to happen. We've had in the past information, pamphlets and other materials put out by the state parties, and it's very important for us to have the candidates understand that whatever those materials say, that they should accept it or respond to it.
Okay, so it's not enough. I mean, some candidates think they're taking the high road by just saying, I won't even answer that. That's just, it'd be discrediting to answer it. But that's not good enough now. They have to speak out.
For instance, there'll be something from the state Republican or state Democratic parties about a candidate. And even though that the local candidate didn't pay for it or didn't mail it, he or she is responsible for the contents, whether they even showed it. If they have to take responsibility, if there's something false in that, and they're the ones that are put on the spot. On the spot. They're the ones who were called in, not the state Republican Party or the state Democratic Party, which is up in Albany or some other place. So the candidate is responsible for whatever is on the mailings.
Now, you've been watching this for a long, long time. Been watching campaigns for a long time.
Yeah.
Are things nastier now than they were when you started watching them?
There's the same degree of nastiness, but it's you have more ways to be nasty. You have the internet, you have social media, you have all the television, cable television, things like that. So and when they first started, I think it was mostly the things that the mailers, somebody would mail out a guy running for judge. He's not a judge, but he would mail out something with he would be dressed in a robe or something and pretend that he's a judge, and he would say, re-elect so-and-so, and he hasn't been elected, make it look like he's an incumbent. Things of that nature at first, but it's gotten a little deeper than that, and it's got more, it is more, it is tougher.
The standards are lower.
But here in Westchester, I think that we, by having the Westchester Fair Campaign, County Fair Camp Practices Committee, we have, I think, reduced the amount of nastiness.
Does the committee stay in session throughout the rest of the year, or is this just during the election?
We are there all year round. We are there for the March elections.
And in Westchester, village elections
yes,
in March.
Yes,
right?
School board, and we haven't had a school board one yet.
We're available for school board. We're fire department. We're available, but it's only the March elections and the general elections that we're getting complaints. We get in primaries too.
Yeah.
Oh, so
it starts in August.
Yes, you've got a pretty long season.
Yeah, we had a primary. In September, we had just before the primary in September, we had one for up county, northern Westchester Putnam district, an assembly race.
Do you have any advice for voters on how to mailings or information that comes to them? I mean, when you receive ads or various pieces of mail, we'll say, whether it be on the internet or whether they're paper copies, how do you know if something was really produced by that candidate?
Well, it should say paid for by whoever it is. And if it doesn't, that candidate should complain to us that there should be an attribution.
Should a citizen be able to discredit it initially if it doesn't say paid for by campaign for Susie X?
Well, I think that the public should know that when something comes out to say, Joe Schmo raised your taxes 1,000%, that no elected official could ever, by herself or himself, do such a thing, whether it's 1,000% or 2%. I think that those exaggerations are something that the average voter look on with askance.
Well, I don't know if this was true or just a joke, but somebody, I think it was either in, it was one of the early states that have early voting, and one of the things they said, vote early and you won't get these mailers to your house. So you'll cut down on
Once they know you voted, they
voted.
won't bother you
Yeah, they
anymore.
check you off. You voted, so they won't send you campaign literature. So maybe that's a good thing.
Do you think money makes a difference in the level of civility in a campaign? I think we've never seen as much money.
I think it makes it worse. Let me bring up the political parties again, because one of the reasons that this particular committee has been a success is because, as Milt said, the political parties are behind it, the political parties and the press. And if a group of really dedicated citizens wanted to do this, they couldn't do it without the support of the political parties for their expertise and their knowledge and for the press.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're getting more press now. We have on the internet, there's internet newspapers, Patch and the others. They get our notices and findings, and they put it on the same day. They can put it right out. And I've seen it the same day before the newspaper had published it.
Do you put the findings on your website?
Yes, we do.
So if someone just wants to see what the findings of your committee has been, whether there have been allegations against X candidate or not, whatever,
Yeah.
they can just go to your website
Yeah.
and check it out.
Not only do that, but the candidates, sometimes they go back to I think we've been on about 8 years. We now have a website, 7 or 8 years, and we've had instances where the candidates will go on and they'll check on their opponents, find that there was a complaint filed against the person. They'll bring it to our attention and say, you know, this opponent did the same thing 2 years ago or 6 years ago, or you ruled in a certain way, so why don't you rule that way for us? Or
we're impressed with
you're
that.
finding, yes.
That does happen.
Yeah, oh yeah, it happens. It happens. So so they're aware of our website and they use it. I don't know if the general public uses, but the candidates use it.
Well, I know that candidates talk about the committee and they are very impressed with your credibility. At least I know, I speak to a lot of candidates. It matters. It matters whether there's a complaint filed against them, and also I know they take the opportunity to go to you. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you'd like to mediate a dispute? Do you ever see two credible candidates and you realize there's some disconnect and it's just distracting people from the real issues that they should be talking about?
We don't get involved with that, but I will say we have had supporters of a candidate come to our hearings, like 6 or 8 people who will come in with this candidate at a hearing and mad as anything. And we take it upon ourselves to help. We try to educate them and let them blow off steam and understand what's going on.
Do you think that the nastiness in campaigns dissuades some people from running for election?
Yes.
Really? I know you have to have a certain political instinct, or most people do, to want to put themselves forward.
We encourage, we thank every candidate who comes before us for running for office, being part of the political process, and we encourage everybody who's interested to do this to really step out and do something for the community and run.
Okay, and knowing that you're there, if they need you, has got to be a little bit of support. And so you will take complaints on school board elections as well as general elections.
I don't remember any lately.
We haven't had that, but we've had municipal elections.
Okay. Interesting, because it's come up as a question here, and now I know I can answer it.
Yeah.
Susan Milt, thank you so much for being my guest. I know that you're extraordinarily busy, but I know that we appreciate all that you're doing. It's a pleasure having you. Welcome back. We have some exciting news. As I reported earlier, we have a final result in the village of Mamaroneck, a clear win for the Democratic candidates. Again, let me go through the numbers. Start with Leon Potok with 3,153 votes, Alyssa Miller with 3,307 votes, Andre Bermudez-Hallstrom with 3,103 votes, and Dan Gallagher, incumbent village justice, 3,662 votes. The Republicans garnered George Belsito, 2,710 votes. Dennis Cuccinella, 2,847 votes. Mike Sudano, 2,933 votes. And Jennifer Beanstalk Cohen for Justice, 2,436 votes. A very, very clear margin of victory for the Village of Mamaroneck Democratic candidates. We're going to be bringing you the concession speeches from the Republican candidates in just a few moments, but we have additional results to report. With 11 out of 28 districts reporting in the town of Mamaroneck, there is a very clear lead for the Democratic candidates. Jane Eklund-Eny with 2,401 votes, and Ron Meister for Town Justice, 2,336 votes. Jay Rubin with 1,221 votes, and Bob Sternbach, 1,261 votes. It's a very, very clear lead for the Democratic candidates in the town of Mamaroneck, but that race has not been called yet. Let's take a look at the race for the 37th Senatorial District. George Latimer now with 165 of 318 districts reporting. George Latimer with 29,275 votes to Bob Cohen's 25,901 votes. Still too early to call that race, but it does look like the Latimer lead is widening. So we're going to try to get those numbers up for you. We're waiting for candidates from the Village of Mamaroneck, Democratic candidates who are victorious, to be coming into the studio. They're going to be here shortly. We're also going to be showing you the tape now of the Republican concession speeches. Let's go to the tape.
Hello, my name is George Belsito, and I'd like to commend my opponents. They swept us. It was a lot of fun, the campaign. Worked very hard. Just keep the village number one. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Dennis Cuccinella, ran on the Republican conservative line. We're not successful in our venture, but we still love our village. We're just hoping that the three candidates, I want to congratulate Alyssa, Leon, and Andres on a campaign rail 1. And I hope you just consider the village as much as we love the village, and just do the job for the village, not for any neighborhood, for the entire village. We'd love to see you happen, and we wish you all success. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome back. Those were the concession speeches from the trustee candidates, the Republican trustee candidates in the Village of Mamaroneck. We're awaiting the Democratic trustee candidates who are coming into the studio any moment. Let me give you the results again, because I know that you wanted to know them. The results in the Village of Mamaroneck are very clear margin of victory with 3,153 votes. For Leon Potok, 3,307 votes. For Alyssa Miller, 3,103 votes. For Andre Bermudez Hallstrom. George Belsito with 2,710 votes. Dennis Cuccinella with 2,847 votes. And Mike Sudano with 2,933 votes. And Dan Gallagher, incumbent Village Justice, with 3,662 votes. To Jennifer Beanstalk Cohen's 2,436 votes, a very clear margin of victory for the Democrats. Now we have a tape of the Democratic victory speeches. Let's go to the speeches.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you all for coming tonight, and to everybody in this room for the support that you gave to me and to the rest of the ticket. I'd like to thank my family who's here, Peter, Dana, and Greta, for all the help they gave me. And I am thankful and appreciative to the public and the voters out there that chose to re-elect me. I like my work, and I love the village, and I thank you all.
I want to thank all the people who worked so hard for everybody in this village. We had lots of people doing lots of good, hard work, And we're so grateful to all of you, and especially to all the spouses and significant others of our candidates, to Angela and Yoram and, wait a minute, Elizabeth Ehrlich, yes, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Ehrlich, Yoram Miller, and Angela Giraldo. Thank you.
And
Alyssa and your wife, yes.
No, I left one person out, Cindy Goldstein, who managed my campaign and has helped the Dems throughout the entire campaign. Thank you, Cindy.
Randy Robinowitz and Elsa Puerto Rubin and all of our hard workers. Wonderful. And here's Alyssa Miller.
Hello. Okay, so I thought Sandy was surreal. This is the second surreal thing that happened to me in just about a week or so. It has been an honor to meet everyone and to work with everyone and to learn about what is important to you. I am truly honored to be able to represent you here in the village. I'm looking forward to it. I've had phenomenal running mates in Leon Potak and Andres Bermudez-Hallstrom. I couldn't have asked for any two better people to run with. And Randy Rabinowitz, who's been an absolute phenomenal supporter. Yay! There she is. And Elizabeth, who her energy just astounds me. We've had so many people supporting us, Elsa and Liz and my husband and Andrea and Andres' mother. I mean, it's been phenomenal. It really has been a fantastic effort, and we thank you for believing in us. So thank you so much.
There's not much to add except to say it's been a terrific experience for me, and I know for my co-candidates, canvassing, walking around the village and meeting people we wouldn't otherwise meet. It's been a great pleasure walking around the village, standing at the train station, meeting people from around the village and hearing their concerns and understanding a wider segment and understanding much more of the village, the diversity of the village and everything it has to offer. I want to thank my wife, my children, and the great support we've had from Elizabeth Sanger. As chair, we couldn't ask for someone more energetic, more dedicated to the campaign, at the same time that she's been dedicated and energetic with 3 other campaigns. Randy Rabinowitz for her guidance, her support, her humor, for Elsa Puerto Rubin for the support, for the folks who've opened up their homes to us, for the volunteers who've helped to make phone calls for us. We appreciate it all. Thank you very much. We hope to do great things for you and for the village and to make all of us proud. Thank you.
Hi. First off, thank all of you for being here, for our fellow Mamaroneck residents, our friends, our family, fellow Democrats. And also thank you to the people of Mamaroneck who have honored us with their vote and having chosen us as their leaders. Thank you very much to our wonderful campaign volunteers, Randy Rabinowitz, who worked her butt off, and also Elizabeth Sanger, who hand wrote thank you letters to everybody who contributed despite working for like every campaign on the ballot. Today's victory is very much sweetened by my wonderful running mates, Alyssa and Leon, who made this experience very fun despite stress, early mornings, running around, and all the sacrifice that we had to make for the campaign. But most of all, I want to thank the love of my life, Angela, who put up with all kinds of stress, all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of, oh, I have a meeting, I'll be home, and then being up, you know, catching up on my day job. She put up with all of it. I really could not have done this without her. Absolutely couldn't have. I would have been, yeah. And to the people of Mamaroneck, I pledge to work for them every single day to make life better for all of them, from the mother in Washingtonville who is afraid to walk outside with her kids at night, to the widow on Rushmore Ave who had to weather the storm all by herself, and the business owners here on the avenue who need the resources and parking and everything to be successful. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the people of Mamaroneck. Thank you.
Welcome back. We have some distinguished guests in the studio with us tonight. The Democratic trustees, the newly elected Democratic trustees in the village of Mamaroneck. Welcome to all of you. Andre, Alyssa, and Leon. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been quite a night.
Oh, yes.
It has.
Yeah. We were watching the results, and it seemed like things were coming in a little slowly at first. Were there problems with any of the polls today?
I understand that there was one poll that had some issues that they had to tally the votes on a separate machine. So yes.
So something broke down.
Yes.
Something didn't work.
Yeah. I had that when we were checking the numbers earlier today. One of the poll workers did say that one of the machines jammed. So what they do is they start feeding ballots into the what's called the Plan B machine, which is the one for handicapped people. So then you have to add up the numbers. It takes a little while.
You know, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. There's so many more things to talk about, but the last time we used optical scanners, or the first time or so, it was such a struggle and there were so many problems, and we all said, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when we have a presidential race if it's this bad? So I guess things are working better. There's a little bit of a startup, but you know,
Seems to be.
It seems to be
a
little bit better. Now, you folks have spent a lot of time going around the village. Unfortunately, we don't have elections in March anymore, so you got to campaign in better weather. What kinds of things were people concerned about, or what kinds of things did you hear? Leon, what did people say was on their minds?
For a lot of folks, people talked about flooding issues.
I'm going to ask you to talk into the mic, because I know this is harder for you, but you're going to get used to it because you're going to be doing that a lot.
I believe so. I expect so. People talked about flooding. People talked about quality of life issues.
When they say quality of life, what did they mean?
We talked to one woman in Washingtonville who described loud cars with loud music passing by late at night, litter being left on the street, and just the kinds of things that affect people's perception of where they live.
Okay.
We talked to lots of folks, obviously, in Orienta who were very concerned about development discussions around Hampshire. Those are the kinds of things, and many people talked about taxes.
Okay.
You know, they want finances. What are you going to do to reduce taxes? And we said, we're not going to reduce taxes. That's not realistic, but we will mitigate increases. We'll try to find ways to manage our resources better.
Okay.
It was what I really liked, and you know, when we got the chance to talk to people and listen to their concerns and hear their gripes about taxes, was the opportunity to educate them about what their taxes are, where their taxes are paid to, what the village of Mamaroneck taxes are in comparison to their school taxes, to the town taxes.
So confusing here.
It absolutely
for most people.
is so confusing here, and so there's very little that we control, but the beauty of it is that we got to let them know what services that we do offer. And that, I think, hopefully helped them understand that, you know, there's a certain aspect of their taxes that they pay. It's the smallest part of their taxes, but they get the most return on it.
A big chunk. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because we have some more numbers to report. And first, let's report the district, the senatorial district, 37th senatorial district, where George Latimer is running against Bob Cohen with 184 of 318 districts reporting. I'm looking at Leon because he's our numbers person here, so he's going to tell me percentages or what. George now has 32,438 votes. We refer to him as George because he was our councilman, he was our state assemblyman, he's known to everybody in our community. Bob Cohen, 28,456 votes. Again, George's 32,438 votes. Wait, I have new numbers. They're coming in so fast.
Wow.
New numbers with 197 districts reporting out of 318. $35,380 for George Latimer, $30,381 for Bob Cohen. So the margin is widening as we're going on in the evening, but still 197 districts out of 318. Can we call that yet, Leon?
Depends which districts.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yes, yes, of course,
It
that's true.
depends, is it Yonkers or is it Mamaroneck?
Yeah, we don't know that.
Right.
We just aren't that sophisticated here. But whatever, it's a clearly...
Next year.
Next year. We've been saying that for years. I'm going to get you to sit with me, and you're going to be doing that. We'll have a laptop, and people have asked for it. We just simply don't have the manpower. But we do have also some numbers reported in the congressional race, Elliot Engel against Joe McLaughlin, with 310 out of 545 districts reporting. Engel has 54,124 votes to Joe McLaughlin's 23,316 votes.
I think we can call that one.
I think that one is pretty wide margin, although I'm not calling anything until it's done. I did mention to you before that while the turnout in a presidential year filters down, definitely affects the turnout in our local elections. Generally, we have about 35% of the voters. I mean, astonishing to me that so few people come out to vote. But we get more people in a presidential race. And as I was going back and looking at the numbers from the 2008 turnout, the numbers were greater then. Leon, you interpreted that, I think.
It depends on whether or not people dropped off from the presidential.
Right, some people just stop, they get tired,
Right.
I guess.
And I think the last race in 2008 was skewed in favor of the Democrats. There were 3 Democrats running against 2 Republicans.
Right.
And I think more people than usual dropped off and didn't vote all the way down the line.
Perhaps that's it, because there was about 1,000 more votes cast for each candidate in the 2008. Yeah, I mean, we don't have all the numbers yet. They have to be refined, but that's what it looks like from here. Alyssa, I cut you off, and I didn't mean to do that. You were talking about what people were saying to you in the village of Mamaroneck about their concerns.
No, just, I mean, and again, the taxes. And I loved the opportunity to meet people, to listen to their concerns, and to help educate them. It really is an education process. It's communication, it's transparency. It's really about what we ran for. And that was the most exciting aspect for me, anyhow, is just meeting people and talking with them.
I think government's right up close, right, Andres? I mean, when you're in the village, it means that when you go out for a slice of pizza at Sal's or Joe's or whatever your favorite place is, you're going to run into people who say to you, why did you say that? Or, you know, I have this concern, you know, so your time is going to be somewhat different in the village.
Absolutely. The thing that got me involved in village government through the flood committee in the first time was during the 2011, during Irene. I had I evacuated to my parents in Hartsdale. I was driving back. I was with the Civil Air Patrol to volunteer at the Mamaroneck High School shelter. And I was on Old White Plains Road trying to get to Boston Post Road, and there was a barricade because that's where the flooding was on Mamaroneck Avenue. And there was a gentleman there manning the barricade so trucks wouldn't get through. And I asked him, hey, how can I get to the high school? He was wearing kind of a fishing waders. And then I see him shift, and he's wearing a shirt that says Mayor. It was Mayor Rosenblum, who was out there in the middle of a flood manning a barricade. And that is sort of what my spark to get involved in Village of Mamaroneck government, because government at this level is hyper local. You have the mayor and the deputy mayor and the trustees helping their neighbors directly during a flood. It's not, you know, the president isn't out there manning a barricade during a flood, but your local government is.
I think you just want the T-shirt.
It was actually the hip waders that did it for me.
We have to take up a collection for you. I think, you know, when you become inaugurated or whatever, you know, sworn in, I think that'll be the official gift. You'll get your own pair of waders. I want to be there to take that photograph.
It would be apropos.
Now, your experience is in emergency services, is that right?
It is. It's in emergency services, and it's in the law. I'm a criminal defense attorney.
Okay.
That's my day job.
Okay.
But I've been an EMT through college. I still have my license. and I'm in the Civil Air Patrol, which does disaster recovery as well.
And how do you think that will play into your role in the village of Mamaroneck? I mean, certainly we've had a couple of disasters, a couple of huge storms, but how do you think that training is going to affect your tenure as trustee?
Well, I think it'll be beneficial. Our police, fire, and EMS are all highly trained, but it helps when the people who have ultimate responsibility for the decisions, that being the Board of Trustees, when they understand when, say, the fire department says, oh, we need more incident commanders, or we need more planning section chiefs, to know, oh, well, that makes sense because that's something that you need during a disaster, or we need XYZ resources. Since that is one of the things that the Board of Trustees does, is set the policy goals and also manages the budgets of the various village departments.
Do you think that'll create a certain tension between you and our emergency service providers?
I don't believe so. I think speaking the same language helps. Okay. Because I know what they're asking for when they're asking for something. So it's not, it's not, oh, I don't know what a incident commander is. We don't need that. It's, oh, I know what that is. I know, we have 10 of them in the village for whatever. I think it's helpful.
Well, you each have different and very valuable expertise. I think next I'm going to go to Leon. I want to talk a little bit about finances, but we do have some more numbers to report, so we're going to come right back to you. Again, in the congressional race, Elliot Engel against Joe McLaughlin, with 253 out of 354 districts, 58,538 for Elliot Engel, 25,477 for Joe McLaughlin. Again, that's a very, very clear lead, I think, for Mr. Engel. George Latimer against Bob Cohen with 205 districts reporting out of 318 now. George has 36,816 votes to Bob Cohen's 31,525. Seems to be just neck and neck, or I mean, where the margins are staying the same so far. So we will keep monitoring those races as we go on. Leon, we want to talk money for a minute. Always want to talk money. You've been on the budget committee for a number of years, and you've taken the village to task for not, perhaps listening to some of the recommendations of the budget committee?
Yes. The budget committee has made recommendations to the village trustees, and as we've said, they've been ignored. The committee has felt very frustrated by the lack of response. Not that the response has been negative, but simply there's been no response. So I hope to, in my role as trustee, to be able to be a voice for the financial side. Whether or not I'm liaison to the budget committee doesn't matter, but simply to further the discussion about finances.
Now, you've made some very interesting recommendations, or the budget committee has. One of them was, is it pay stations, or is it, what's the proper term for the?
Multi-space meters.
Multi-space meters. I know this is in Manhattan. So rather than having a defined parking space, people can.
No, it's simply instead of having single meters at each space,
Right.
you have one box where people go deposit money that's tied to a specific spot. So it's still spot specific.
And so why is that more advantageous than having single meters?
The primary reason is because when you have a single meter, it shows how much time is left.
Right.
So when someone pulls out and someone new pulls in, they can see how much time is left
So
and get
people
the benefit.
can go shopping for a parking spot with some money left on.
Right. Well, it just works out that nobody ends up paying for precisely how much time they use. And so the next parker gets the benefit of the previous parker's payment. So when you park at a multi-space, the clock starts anew for each person. So the advantage is both financial, that you get more income, more revenue for it, and you get data, because then now you can record how much revenue you're getting from each space at all times. So you know when it is that you're filled, when it is you're not. Which spaces are filled 100% of the time, all the time, which ones are 42%.
Would that enable you to have people pay more for certain spots at certain times?
You can better gauge what the impact is if you raise meter prices. You can choose to do variable pricing of charging different rates at different times during the day.
Much like Easy Pass, you know how that
Exactly.
has changed things.
The ability to, it just gives you the ability to do things you can't do with a single meter that's a mechanical meter.
Okay. I think about, well, parallel parking in the city. I mean, here, of course, we have diagonal parking, but parallel parking in the city where, you know, spots aren't defined any longer. I drive a Mini Cooper. You could get two of my cars into a spot, into one person's spot. We can't do that with diagonal parking. But I was thinking of multi-space meters, you know, having some impact in that. But we don't have very much parallel parking in the village. Alyssa, your skills are more in communication and PR. How will you bring that to the village board? What do you see your role?
Well, I also consider myself an interpreter. You know, being able to listen to people and understand what they're saying and be able to communicate that in a way that everyone can understand it, and being able to communicate effectively. Just this past week, you know, with the Hurricane Sandy, it's been incredible. I've had a lot of clients that I've been advising on how they should be communicating effectively through this time, what you say internally, what you say to your customers, what you say to your prospects, what you say to the market. There are different messages for everyone. And I have to give kudos to the village for their ongoing communications to everyone. They have been very effective at letting people know what's going on. And it's that type of communication that I think we need, not just in an emergency, but on a regular basis to give people access to what's happening, what's available to them.
I think you're right. We're probably just at the very beginning of that kind of communication. We've talked with the mayor earlier today and then with town council, town supervisor Nancy Seligson. And interesting, I think you ought to perhaps propose your services to Con Ed, because it seems that one of the biggest frustrations our communities have had with Con Ed is not necessarily their lack of performance, but the lack of communication of where they're going to be and what they're accomplishing, and you know, so that information can be shared with people. It diminishes some of the stress.
That's the number one complaint through anything. I mean, I do telecommunications. Con Ed used to be in telecommunications. The hardest part is staying ahead of your customers. With social media, with other forms of mass communication, a lot of people have their voices being heard above and beyond what companies and communities and municipalities have to say.
I don't think the Village of Mamaroneck is on Facebook yet, are we?
Yes, there's.
we have a website.
There's a website, but I know that there are the representatives are on Facebook. I don't know that there's a village representation yet.
Are we going to have one person in charge of tweeting?
We should. You know, we should be part of what we do. I mean, why not? It's another way of it's the new way of communicating. Absolutely.
Let's go to some more numbers, and then we'll go back to our conversation. Again, we want to update you on the congressional race between Elliot Engel and Joe McLaughlin. Again, now with 52 of 68 districts reporting, 65,124 for Elliot Engel to 27,404 for Joe McLaughlin. I think you can see where that one is leading. George Latimer with 39,572 votes to Bob Cohen's 33,563 votes, now with 218 districts reporting. Still a very significant lead for George, but I don't think anybody's going to call that one yet. Okay, well, it's an interesting night. We do hear that CNN, just in case you haven't heard, the CNN is predicting Barack Obama as the winner in the presidential race. We are not predicting that. We're just reporting what CNN has said. We've gotten into trouble before. But of course, we're here with a micro focus on the village of Mamaroneck right now, but we live in the context. Yes. And everyone, of course, is waiting for the results of that race as well. I suppose you guys are going to go home and turn on the TV and be up half the night like the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Right. No, you're going to be planning, your first board meeting, right? Are you starting to look at people you're going to propose for boards and committees? Have you thought about your role in doing that?
No, we have not. We really, one of the things that we do hope to accomplish is to get more residents to volunteer for boards and to find ways to make it a rewarding experience for people such that they want to. There's enormous talent in this village, and people have all different kinds of skills and talents and experiences that they can help bring and have a rewarding experience from doing so. And we hope we can encourage people to volunteer.
Why do you think people haven't volunteered?
I don't know that they know necessarily how to, what their opportunities are, or even given the chance to. When were out canvassing and speaking with people, that was one of the opportunities that we had to raise with people, those who were interested, those who were engaged, those who were thoughtful about what's going on. We did ask them about their interest and raise the opportunities to them about volunteering for the village. We do have notes, and we will be following up with them.
Oh,
And so, from a standpoint of, are we going to bring our friends and family in? No, we are going to bring in community members who are interested, who are passionate, who have skill sets that we feel could be beneficial to the entire community.
It would be a wonderful thing to bring in some fresh blood. I think
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people are, I hate to use the word recycled, but we do kind of reach back to the same few people to serve on various boards and committees, and we say it's because of their expertise, and that of course has certain merit, but fresh blood, new ideas are always a good thing.
Even when there are committees that are defined and with appointees, there's always room for more people to help, even if it's not in the role of an official committee member. There are always projects that, committees can use more staffing, more help from more expertise on. So we really do encourage people to send us resumes, to send us their interest, along with obviously to all the members of the board, to the village manager, and the usual procedure, but to really think seriously about what are the things they're interested in that they could help the village with, what activities, and we hope to help to find ways to bring them in.
Well, how do you think, and now of course you folks will be a majority on the board, that has a certain responsibility as well as a certain amount of clout. Do you find that you all pretty much think alike or in lockstep? A lot of people think that's always the case, but in the past that has not always been so.
I can assure you, even during this campaign, we haven't been in lockstep on many issues. We do work together very well. We do work very well to seek a consensus that works for all of us, and we will continue to do so. But we're all individuals. At least Leon and Alyssa are quite intelligent, and they think for themselves, and we will work together to come to the best decision for the people of Mamaroneck.
Well, one of the most exciting things in the village of Mamaroneck has certainly been the vitality of Mamaroneck Avenue. It's been an amazing resurgence, I guess. I see people from all over the county, friends from Scarsdale, come to Mamaroneck. I ask if they've, had their passport checked, they know where they are. But they come to the restaurants. I mean, the vitality is just fantastic. The parties in the summer have just been great. No other way to say that. I wondered about the Chamber of Commerce. So I sat down with Steve Josephson and Chris Casese from the Village of Larchmont Chamber to talk about the Chamber and what they've been doing, and I have a tape of that. But I wanted to thank you guys so much for coming into the studio. I know that you're tired, and I know that you want to probably get home and turn the TV on and be with your families a little bit. This running on a local level takes a lot out of you, for sure. But will you come back? I'm going to look forward to talking with you more about issues, and there are so many things happening in the village.
Of course.
So I'm going to ask you to stay seated for just a couple more minutes. We're going to go to a roll-in tape. Once again, all the networks now are predicting that President Obama has won re-election. Again, that is not us predicting it. This is what the networks are. I'm going to give you some final notes. Well, I'm calling them final, but they're probably final for us. In the congressional race, Eliot Engel, 65,354 votes to Joe McLaughlin's 28,941, a very clear margin of victory. George Latimer with 42,424 votes, pulling quite a bit ahead of Bob Cohen with 35,528 votes. We're going to try to get those numbers up. But I would like to bring you that conversation I had last week with Steve Josephson and Chris Casese of the Chambers of Commerce. And we're going to go to that tape now. Chris Casese and Steve Josephson. I know I had that wrong initially. Thank you so much for being here. If you had to describe the work of the Chamber in our two small communities, how would you describe it? Steve, why don't you go first? What's your objective?
It's getting people involved and trying to make things happen in Mamaroneck, which I'm very aggressive, and we have a lot of different functions going throughout the year. I mean, if you want me to start, in January, we have our annual dinner dance, and we usually honor one person. This year we're honoring 2 people.
Who are we
We're
honoring?
honoring Rose Silvestro. She works in the Bank of New York, and we're honoring Tommy DeRosa. Both of them have been past presidents, and the reason why we're honoring them is because I would say about maybe 10, 12, 14 years ago, whatever it was, the chamber kind of died out. And Rose Silvestro and Tommy DeRosa both kind of worked together, and they brought back the Chamber of Commerce. So that's why we're honoring 2 of them this year.
Okay, so that's one of the many functions that the
That's one of the many functions. And then we go into May, and we have something new that we started about 3 years ago, which is the Wine Tasting Festival, which is what you do is we have both wine tasting, and what it's more for restaurants to show them what they present in food-wise. So what we do is we charge $50 per person, and we hire 2 trolley cars, and it takes them up and down Mamaroneck Avenue and up and down Boston Post Road. Last year we had about 19 different businesses. We had the Westchester Sandbox Theater that did a play or a presentation for about 20 minutes. They presented some wine and cheese, and we had a lot of other restaurants on Mamaroneck Avenue and on Boston Post Road and other various types of businesses.
And how many people are participating in that these days?
Last year we had about 175, 180 people that showed up for the festival.
What's your objective in doing that?
To show what Mamaroneck is all about. I mean, we have a hot community right now. We have very little, if none, as far as empty spaces goes, as far as restaurants or businesses. We have a lot of new retailers. We have a lot of new restaurants.
Well, certainly it's a pretty robust shopping street right now. Mamaroneck Avenue has just burst.
And Boston Post Road, too.
Yeah.
We had quite a few new restaurants that had opened up in the past, and other retailers also.
Okay. Now, Chris, how about you? What's the Larchmont Chamber up to these days?
Well, it's a little bit of a different story, unfortunately, in Larchmont. We've lost a few staple cornerstone restaurants, as I would call them, Globe being one of them, and Pascal's recently, closed. We do have a new Indian restaurant going into where Sardinia used to be, and where the Catery used to be as a new Thai restaurant. So we are starting to see, some new businesses come in. We are hosting a general meeting on Thursday, November 15th at the Flower Bar, and that runs from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. We have elected officials talking there. Okay. So we're reaching out to the community, to the business community, to come in and join us for that. We also have the holiday trolley. We do a holiday shopping trolley that goes up and down Palmer, and then we'll wind around Larchmont Avenue to Boston Post Road, and then come back on Chatsworth.
Okay.
So to create the loop around town.
And is that done just the week before Christmas?
It's done usually around then. We haven't set a date yet. We're still gathering our sponsors. Okay. But the chamber right now is, we actually just did a survey. We don't have all the results in yet of local business and why people aren't hitting the streets on Larchmont. I could even say from a personal account, last night I was at Starbucks around 7 o'clock, and Palmer was just, there was no visible traffic, people traffic in sight.
Sure.
So we're trying to bring people back to shopping local and not having to go out of the area.
Now, it's interesting. I think we all were affected by the economic downturn a few years ago. It's not over. Somehow Mamaroneck seems to have survived that with a little bit more, with more men standing, if you will. Now, I just have a theory, and that was that people who said, I can't go to the city, I can stay home, and I'll go to Mamaroneck Avenue. It's a party going on in Mamaroneck Avenue almost every night, right?
Just about, yes.
Certainly when the weather's good with all the cafes and things. Why do you think Larchmont suffered perhaps a little bit more and has been so slow to recover?
Well, I think that our town is a little more spread out. We do have, it seems to be, two distinct sides, and we have the Palmer Avenue side, you know, really which runs a little north of Chatsworth up to where Globe used to be, you know, down to Larchmont Avenue, and then we have the Boston Post Road side where Addison Street is. I do believe we need to shut down our streets down more like Mamaroneck does. I think we need to, you know, bring the restaurants into the streets, and in New York City, you know, al fresco dining style, where tables are out in the streets. If you've ever, you know, been in the middle of the street in Larchmont, when you look back at the storefronts, it's beautiful. And we never really get to see that vantage point.
Well, most people find it's not very safe to stand in the middle
of
the street.
Right.
If the street's closed off,
we
you're
want
okay.
to close it down.
Right.
But even, you know, down by Tequila Sunrise and on Larchmont Avenue and Au Gourmet, it's, you know, there's Mediterranean architecture, and there's also kind of old New York Tudor style architecture going on, which is...
Well, nobody can dispute Larchmont's a very pretty village.
Yes.
How much collaboration is there normally between the Chamber and the municipal government as far as sponsoring? Well, folks, it looks like we've come to the end of our evening here. I'm going to give you a recap of our numbers, but we have to say that all networks are reporting a big win for President Obama. Let's talk about the big wins right here. Town of Mamaroneck, it looks like a very clear win for Councilwoman Jane Eklund-Eny with 5,928 votes to Jay Rubin's 3,107 votes. Town Justice has been reelected, Ron Meister, with 5,860 votes to challenger Bob Sternbach's 3,156 votes. We're going to try to get some of those numbers up if they haven't been already. In the congressional race, Elliot Engel, 65,124 votes to challenger Joe McLaughlin, 27,404 votes. Clear margin of victory. George Latimer appears to be significantly ahead now, 39,572 votes to 33,563 votes. And I think those were the latest numbers. If not, we'll get up the latest numbers. But it looks like a very clear, and those are the latest numbers, I'm told, with a very clear and consistent lead for George Latimer. Here in the village of Mamaroneck, the race that most of you are watching for, a clear Democratic sweep. Leon Potak, 3,153 votes. Alyssa Miller, 3,307 votes. Andres Bermudez Hallstrom with 3,103 votes. And Dan Gallagher, incumbent village justice, 3,662 votes. Republicans, George Belcito, 2,710 votes. Dennis Cuccinella, 2,847 votes. And Jennifer Beanstalk Cohen for justice, 2,436 votes. A very clear showing for the Democrats, but certainly a very nice showing for the Republicans. On behalf of everyone on LMC, I want to thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Alice Bloom. There are so many people behind the scenes who make us look as good as we do. Please watch our credits, and we'll see you next time.